Ah, that's very cool. Mm, good to see you, Michael. Good to see you too, Michael. Fucking watching your streams, so I know what you're talking about. Oh, time of thought then. Cute. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be a long 3 hours, Firefox.
Hi. I'm good. How are you? Yeah, you're streaming, or I suppose you're streaming, yeah. No, I was just hopping on for a little bit, testing this character. Mhm. Oh, thank you so much. I love how you look too. I don't know that much science, but I can understand a lot of basic things. Mm. Mm. Yeah, got a lot of various piercings and such. How are you doing? Well, you already said you're doing good. I don't really have anything else going on here, but I was actually about to get some food. You're hungry too? Hmm. You get to see me. It's been a while, yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen you in a little bit, but I guess that we're both busy with things and such. Mm. I've just taken more time off for the weekend, so that's why I'm a little bit more available. Mm. Friends? Where? Where are people? Where is everyone? uh, not on VR. Pretty much. Like, I just came on real quick, and then I was gonna hop off, but all my people aren't on right now, I think. It's like, around this time, it's been a little bit, like, it's a little bit later now, but it's still a little bit empty around these times. Mm. 21 hours stream? Or, oh my god. Looks like you're doing well. I would fucking die doing that, honestly. I hope everyone is having fun. Actually, I might do something like that next week. We'll see. Think about it, and I'm like, but I like not being dead for a couple of days, so like. I'm curious, would you ever? wants to visit the gator. Uh, um, so like the thing is, whenever that starts, it's like 4 a.m. for me, right? And so like, I I mean, Blue invited me to the other day, I suppose. I don't mind taking a look. I just have to like I said, it's always like really late for me, usually. It's mostly a time zone thing. But, I mean, I am on quite a while today, so maybe I'll drop by. Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to see you more too. If you, well, I guess sometimes it's a little bit weird, so if you have my DM, then I could totally like hop on if you send me one. If there's like a time for it or something. Sure. I'm just inviting friends. Might. Visiting friends. Might. Right now. Okay, right now. Okay, gotcha. I mean, yeah, I'd imagine you gotta fill in a couple of more hours. You're doing well? Something you do usually, or are you just like used to being home for that long? Oh, you just got partnered, I see. Celebration stream. Hey, that works. I get you. Yeah, it make me want to stretch too. Let's see. Yeah, I'm about to cook some food, so I'll be busy for a little bit. And well, if you're on tonight, then shoot me a message and I can see it and come visit you. Hey, you have fun. And see you later, I guess. Well, are you gonna be on after doing a 24-hour stream, really? be on for Kobe? Rob's lobby. Oh, okay, Rob's lobby. Gotcha. Hey, take care. I'll see you around. You too. Bye.
Take the coffee quiz, and Trade will curate matches just for you to be delivered to your door.
First 100 people to click the link in the video description below will get 30% off their first bag, plus free shipping.
Free shipping.
Envío gratis.
Free shipping.
Spedizione gratuita.
Free shipping.
It's free shipping.
Free shipping.
Ladies and gentlemen, this week Sola El Whaley is putting a spin on a Thanksgiving feast. It's time to stump Sola.
Okay. Astronaut food.
I have been so psyched for this one. I love space. I love space things.
I mean, who doesn't love space things?
Apollo 13, First Man, Right Stuff. These are movies
What's
about
about
space.
the one with, there's one where this woman just floats away.
Gravity.
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 So how are you going to make an astronaut Thanksgiving?
Well, I mean, you have this freeze dryer machine thing that's not really been used, so That was a good time to bust it out.
It costed a lot of money, so I'm very happy that we're finally going to get some use out of it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's going to be fun. Space, Thanksgiving, two wonderful things.
They make perfect sense together.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, so as usual, I can't wait to try it. I'm glad I don't have to make it. Cash, can you make the wheel like float away in post? Oh, there it goes. That looks real.
So real.
Big money being put into that.
Thanksgiving, my favorite holiday of the year. Probably the reason why I learned how to cook. When I was younger, it was the only time my mom would let me cook because she thought Thanksgiving was really low stakes because it's just like salt and pepper. I grew up eating stuff with a lot of spices. It was really hard to figure out how to balance. So Thanksgiving food was really how I learned how to cook because it is a lot of stuff and it seems really intimidating, but you're really just working with salt, pepper, and herbs. So I want to go classics. Turkey with gravy, mashed potatoes, stuffing, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, and pumpkin pie. That's going to be our menu. And the key to Thanksgiving is really just planning. So we're going to do this over 2 days. This is my prep day. Tomorrow we're going to cook it all. After I make the whole meal, I'm going to cut it up, portion everything out, and then it's going to go in the freeze dryer for space. So astronaut food, I don't know what they actually eat in space, but when I think of astronaut food, I think of the freeze-dried ice cream. And Andrew has a freeze dryer because, of course he does. He has everything. So this is like a really great excuse to use it. There's no way it's not going to be delicious, right? I feel like this is the most enthusiastic I've been in a planning session because I really like Thanksgiving. I think this is going to be fun. All right, let's go. Happy Thanksgiving. Okay, I'm going to start by making my dry brine. I like to keep it really simple. Salt. You need to make more brine than you think because it just makes it easier to get it on there. A little bit of sugar. I like to do like maybe a third of whatever my salt is. MSG. Very important ingredient. This is a lot of brine. I'm going to do this much MSG. And then pepper. Oh gosh, this pepper mill is intense. Look at how much pepper is coming out of it. See if that looks like how much pepper you want. I think I want a little more. Dry brines are no big deal. It's just like another word for putting salt on something and letting it hang out. Okay, we did it. Dry brine, prepared. Now let's break down our turkey. I always wear gloves. Turkey's so big and heavy that it's really easy to slip and cut yourself. And this will just help you hold on to it a little bit better. I'm really, really bad at this, like really just the worst. And I can do this, so you can do this too. Pull out our giblet bag. This has happened to me twice now with the turkey and with the duck, where I thought I got all the giblets out. I brined the turkey, I roasted it, we went to go eat it, and there was another bag in there. So now I like to really make sure, get your hand in there and make sure there isn't like a second bag of giblets because it's happened to me twice and I think we're safe. Now, all we're gonna do here is take off the wings and take off the legs. And then you just kind of let gravity do a lot of work for you. So, you see, we're gonna go around here. This is where the joint is. So don't cut through the bone. We want to just gently cut the skin. So I have a really hard time finding the joints myself. So take really small, shallow cuts until you can see what's going on. And see, look, we found it. We found it. A little investigation. If you're unsure, just take your time. And before you know it, you shall release your wing. Look at that clean joint, huh? Damn. There we go. We did one. We're like 25% of the way there. Next wing. And free the wing. So easy. It's really not that hard. Open this up. Boom. Now we'll go for the legs. When you're pulling off the legs, it's really easy to get too close to the breast, and then this skin is going to shrink right up, and you won't have a nice, beautiful skin on your turkey breast. So pull this up here. Make sure you have enough skin for your breast. There's plenty on the leg, and then make your shallow cut right here. So we'll open it up on the other side. Really shallow cuts. We're just cutting through the skin right now. We're not cutting through anything else. See this right here? That's the oyster. The oyster is the meaty, meaty part of the thigh that's right between the hip joint, and it's super tender. It's like the fillet of the turkey. It's really easy when you're taking off a leg on a turkey or a chicken to cut through that. So it's good to flip it over, see where that oyster is, make sure your knife goes around it. There's where the hip socket is. Use your thumb to get in there and release that meat. You don't want to use your knife because that's when you can cut through the oysters. Now we're going to give it a crack. See how that The joint just popped out for us. So easy. Okay, we did it. Look at that. We got our oyster, we got it all. We're gonna keep our turkey on the crown, which means we're gonna keep it on the bone. So I'm just gonna remove this backbone and we're gonna use it to reinforce the gravy. So this is also, you're just cutting through the ribs here. And now we are going to pat this dry. You can do this. Breaking down turkey, not hard. Okay, time to dry brine. So just be like really generous and get it all over. The excess will just fall, so that's why we started out with so much more than we think we needed. You can do some spices in here if you want. I personally do not like that. This is salt and pepper cooking, you know? I want to taste butter and turkey and herbs. Okay, we did it. Turkey. Now I'm gonna make my pie crust so it can chill overnight and we can blind bake it tomorrow. I'm using Stella Park's recipe. You can find it on Serious Eats. I think it's the best pie crust. It's basically a rough puff pastry. A couple things about it though. It only works with gold medal flour and American butter. If you use a European style butter, it gets all weird and weepy and all the fat bursts out of it. I learned that the hard way. Follow the recipe. So it's gonna be 6 ounces of flour and I don't remember how much salt and sugar, but all you need to remember is it's 6 ounces of flour, 6 ounces of butter, 3 ounces of water. And then, you know, sugar and salt to make it taste good. Whisk this up. Stella, don't get mad at me. Okay, let's cube up our butter. So this is gonna be 1.5 sticks. You wanna go for 1/2-inch squares. It's nice and cold, I just pulled it out. You want it to be firm, so it doesn't just like melt into the dough. We want nice defined chunks of butter to stay in there. So we're gonna get in here, and all you gotta do is smash each cube 1 time. Just like that, and then set it aside. Smush, smash, smush, smash, smush, smash. Did you hear my burp? No. I just burped. I thought you could hear into the mic. Well, it's because I'm a lady. Alrighty. We got them all. Now, add in all the water and mix. Smish smash with your spatula until everything is moistened. This is going to be a little bit of a wet dough, but you're allowed to use as much flour as you want, rolling it out. So like take your time at this point and make sure everything gets well mixed. Everything's been moistened. It hasn't come together into a smooth dough. This is shaggy mass. It's a word you'll hear a lot, so it's good to know what it looks like. We're gonna flour generously. We're gonna gather our dough, flour the top, and now we're gonna start the process of laminating, which sounds super fancy, but it just means roll it out and fold it up. First roll, it's gonna not really hold together at all, but that's cool. We wanna go until it's about 1/2 inch. You'll see as we do these folds, it's gonna come together. It will start to look like pie dough. See, this is the second round, and you can already see like we have these nice sheets of butter that are going to make our pie dough like super flaky. Can you see the layers? Now we are going to do our final roll. I like to kind of make it a circle. So if we start out with a circle, it's easier to end up with a circle. So you wanna go for an 1/8 of an inch thick. If you go too thick, it'll be really tough. Okay guys, I think we did it. So far so good, huh? I do really like Thanksgiving. I feel like I have an energy in this episode. See, now it's cool, you can use all the flour you want because you just go back and you dust it off. It's a lot easier to do this than to scrape dough that's been stuck to the counter. And it's really fun because you feel like an archaeologist. Oh, what did I find? If this was a dinosaur, what would it be called? Piceratops?
That's much better than Tyrannosaurus Rex.
I like Tyrannosaurus Rex too. Kendall, what's yours?
No, mine wasn't good.
Tell me.
What is it? Dovosaurus.
I like it. Okay. Look at that. Whoa. This dough is so sturdy, but it's gonna bake up so tender and flaky. It's incredible. Stella's a magician. Just like be gentle, make sure it all gets in there. I feel like that's good. Now we're gonna clean up the edges. I want to cut it so I have like maybe 1/4 inch past this rim. So you just go boop. And then these scraps, you don't have to throw them out. It's like so much good butter in there. What my mom would always do is just like roll it out, add a bunch of cinnamon sugar, and bake it off as like a little tea cookie. Now, we didn't give this dough a rest at all. It's gonna rest after we roll it out. So it might shrink a little bit. So that's why you don't wanna cut it right up along this edge. We wanna give it some room so if it does shrink, no problem. I prefer just like the simplest edge. At the end of the day, we're gonna slice this up and freeze dry it. So Doesn't matter that much. And now I'm gonna let this rest overnight. And tomorrow morning, first thing I'm gonna do is blind bake this crust. And then we're gonna get our pumpkin filling in there. Great. Pie. Oh God. Okay, so I'm up here right now because I need multiple burners to pull this off in a relatively, short amount of time. So Andrew let me borrow his kitchen. We're gonna be cooking up here. We're gonna have a lot of pots boiling, simmering, and it's gonna be great. Happy Thanksgiving. It's Halloween today. It's not. What day is it today? I don't know. To get started, I'm going to roast my backbone and neck bone at about 400 degrees until it gets nice and brown, and we render out some of this fat, and we're going to reinforce some chicken stock for our gravy. This is my pie crust that I made yesterday. I'm going to blind bake it now. Listen to Stella. This is the way she likes to blind bake. We're gonna line it with foil completely. You want the foil right up against the crust. By lining the foil on top and having it on top of an aluminum baking sheet, we're gonna get really good heat distribution from the top and the bottom. I really love this trick that Stella does of lining it with sugar. Sugar weighs more than beans or rice, but it's not as heavy as pie weights. I noticed sometimes those metal pie weights, they leave little indents in your pie crust because they are so heavy. And then as a nice byproduct, you also get, this sugar is gonna get like nicely toasted, which kind of caramelizes the flavor of the sugar and takes an edge off the sweetness. It'll be a great sugar to use in our pie filling as well. You do need a lot. Make sure you fill it up to the tippy top. We're gonna use the whole bag. Next, really important, take a spoon and just make sure that the sugar is getting into the corners. And we're gonna bake this at 350 for 60 to 70 minutes. One of the benefits of using a glass pie pan is that we can lift it up and check and see how the color's looking throughout the baking. All right, here we go, going in. Okay, hey Siri, set a 60-minute timer. Did you hear me? Siri, hey Siri, you doing it?
Okay, 1 hour.
She's doing it. All right, so next up, I'm gonna get my potatoes. Relax, Siri. We're good. We're good, Siri. I'm gonna start simmering my potatoes for mashed potatoes. I'm gonna use russets. So let me go get some water. I'll be right back. Do I seem weird? I feel weird. Boiling our potatoes skin on is gonna keep them from getting absorbing too much moisture and getting wet. And we're gonna put like a lot of salt in here, like a lot of salt. Because it's also skin on, it's not gonna all penetrate in there, so it's gonna be okay. Burner 1, activated. Let's see how many we end up using. Okay, our sweet potatoes. I'm gonna make a little sweet potato casserole. I like to cook my sweet potatoes right in the milk. The milk's gonna concentrate and give like nice little toffee notes to it. So we're gonna go for like 1-inch squares. You don't really have to get too crazy here. We just want them to be relatively even so they cook in about the same time. I think I'm gonna go a little crazy and do cream and milk. Wild. You know, it's supposed to be rich and luxurious. Just about covered. That's gonna be good. Big, big pinch of salt. And I'm gonna get this cooking on low-ish. That's gonna hang out, do its thing. I guess let's get our mushrooms going for our casserole. Got some cremini mushrooms. I go ahead and wash my mushrooms because we're gonna cook out all the moisture, so it's gonna be fine. I want a clean mushroom. They're grown in manure. I know it's sterilized manure, but it's still manure. I like to wash my mushrooms. I don't care if it's controversial.
There, four burners.
4 burners. And we're not even really getting started yet. I want these mushrooms to get really nice and brown. Common thing with mushrooms is people undercook them and they haven't really had a chance to develop their flavor, you know? So we are not gonna do that. So I'm just gonna chop and drop. Oof, it's hot in here. Really, really getting steamy, guys. 2 ovens on, 4 burners. It's wild. Okay, the mushrooms are in. Some people do not salt right away. I salt right away because I want that moisture to draw out. I want to draw out all the moisture at this point. It's gonna get real sizzly and look really wet and you're gonna think I'm nuts, and then that moisture is gonna cook out. It's gonna brown. It's gonna get super concentrated. So stick with me, guys. It's gonna work. I promise. Ooh, you know what? We should put a little garlic in there. Yeah, let's do a little thyme. So while that's doing its thing, I'm gonna trim my green beans. I wanna trim off the ends and cut them into 1-inch pieces. I'm gonna check out my sweet potatoes. How are you doing? They are doing great. The milk is getting hot. You're getting a little rowdy. I'm gonna turn you down. Shh. Oh, listen. It sounds different, right? You can hear it's more sizzly because the moisture's cooking off. And now we're switching gears and we're gonna go into Brown Town. Let's bring our water over. Okay, so blanch. What is a blanch? So blanching is when you cook our green beans in boiling salted water until they just get crisp, tender, and like bright green. And that's really the best indicator that you're either done or you're very, very close. You need a lot of ice water because you want this to cool down fast. Look, our mushrooms are getting brown. You guys, I feel like there are so many of you watching who didn't believe in me. What is that? Okay, I feel good about that. Our green beans are ready. These are really close. Those are good. We're gonna turn them off and set them aside for now. We're gonna come back and make our mushroom sauce in there. Okay, so I got my turkey back, turkey neck, nice and golden. We've rendered out some fat, which is nice. I'm gonna put this in the pressure cooker along with some aromatics. We're gonna start with regular old box chicken stock. The neck and back alone isn't enough to bring us, enough flavor and give us enough stock. So we're just gonna make this box stuff taste even better. We're gonna put our neck in there. Gonna add a little carrot, little celery, some thyme, garlic. This is gonna go in the pressure cooker 1 hour, and then we're gonna use this for our stuffing and our gravy. I'm gonna grab my pie crust. It's been blind baking. All right, so the sugar's nice and toasty. I'm gonna let it cool before I try and remove that. But you can see we have good golden brown color. I'm gonna set this aside for now. Next, I'm gonna work on the stuffing. I grew up with stuffing from the box, so that's kind of my philosophy when I make stuffing. I think of it as 3 parts. We're gonna make croutons, add mix-ins, and then moisture. So for the croutons, this is something you wanna do with stale bread. This is a few days old, and I'm gonna cut up these into really nice cubes, toss it with some seasoning. We're gonna use some good olive oil. I have a little bouillon that I think I'm gonna put in there, which I think will be awesome. Really channel those stovetop vibes. I'm also gonna add some paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, and thyme, and a touch of MSG. Little pepper and salt. I'm just gonna toss and taste and toss and add more and adjust until it tastes good. I think that's good. I'm gonna bake this until it's nice and toasty and golden. We're gonna go in there and toss it a couple of times, make sure it's even. And this will be the start of our stuffing. So for the mashed potatoes, you always wanna add hot cream and butter to your mash. It'll just make it for a nice, smooth, silky consistency. It'll incorporate a lot better. So I'm gonna warm up some cream and just let that come up to a simmer. I'm gonna add a little garlic, a sprig of thyme, a little bay leaf, and we'll add some butter too. I'm also gonna throw in some whole peppercorns in there. Don't boil over, buddy. Now, while we were at lunch, our potatoes finished cooking. So I'm gonna peel them and get them started mashing. So it's good to peel your potatoes while they're hot. They get really grainy when they cool down. Try and do that. Ooh, do you guys have a ricer? Oh, under one of these? Bottom. Ah, my cream. Whoops. You're fine. Our potatoes, they're going in. Smush. Oh, so satisfying. What's great about smushing your potatoes in a ricer, it's just going through one time rather than like when you use a potato masher and you just mash and you mash and you mash. You're less likely to get like a gloopy, starchy texture. All right, let us strain this mixture. Okay, so we're gonna pour our hot cream and butter situation. I don't know if we're gonna need all of it. We'll just start with a little. Actually, maybe we do. Maybe we do want it all. Ugh. A little more salt, and that's it. We're there. Okay, so my pie has had a moment to cool, and our croutons are out. Look, so crunchy. So crunchy. That bouillon is magic. Okay, so I'm gonna mix up my filling to put in the pie crust. This is some butternut squash that Kendall roasted and pureed for me earlier. Thank you, Kendall.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we need condensed milk, 19 ounces. I don't know if this is 19 ounces, but if it isn't, I'm gonna just split the difference with some cream. Sorry, Stella, she wouldn't like this. But there are some pastries where you can kind of fudge, and custards are one of them, and this is essentially a custard. Let's split the difference with 5 ounces of cream, 4 ounces of brown sugar. We're gonna do some vanilla. This is an okay thing to eyeball. Ginger, about 1.5 teaspoons. Cinnamon. Hello.
Are the memory cards you wanted for the camera?
Yes.
Are you guys shooting? I'm sorry.
Are there memory? You know what I've got? A couple of cockroaches.
Why?
I've been-
those around.
I just keep them in my pocket now. Okay, here is our pie. It's going in the oven.
How do you prevent cracks?
I found out the
Thank
really,
you.
really hard way that it's the cracks in custards is because the temperature fluctuates too much.
In your oven?
No, when you take it out of the oven. So if it goes from being
Oh.
really hot, it should really cool too fast.
All right, stuffing. Mix-in time. Ooh.
Wait, did the video pause? What happened?
Guys, welcome back to Basics with Babish, where today we're learning how to make sourdough. I don't know how to make sourdough, but if you know who Josh Weissman is, he knows how to make sourdough. Josh, thank you for coming and helping me out today.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Anytime. Consider me your sourdough liaison.
I've always considered you that, quietly, in the privacy of nighttime. Tell us about sourdough, Josh.
Dude, you want the whole process?
No, what does it mean to you?
You know what? Actually, we were talking about this a little bit today, but I feel like sourdough bread it's a great way to kind of like slow life down a little bit, right? You can't speed sourdough up, right? When we're making this, I feel like we're gonna have some downtime. You know, we're gonna chill, maybe play some Mario Kart, do something, and then by the end of it, you know, you've got, you know, once you've chilled out a little bit, and you're gonna end up with a beautiful loaf of bread, crusty, crunchy, airy, and a vehicle for butter.
It feels like a great source of pride to be able to take nothing but flour and water.
You're so right, though, and I think, especially with bread, it's like the simplicity of ingredients. This is the very definition of beauty and simplicity, like the very definition, because it doesn't get any simpler in ingredient, and the process itself, although is involved, is relatively straightforward. So it's like you get this super complex food out of super not complex ingredients. Yeah.
That sounds like the mantra of my show. I love having like incredibly complex dishes made from very few, very simple ingredients. Technique. Let's get down to basics. Today we're making sourdough in a Dutch oven combo cooker, raw cast iron, Lodge Logic, like 20 bucks on Amazon.
Yeah, super cheap.
Yeah.
It's gonna make a big difference.
What are the advantages of using this?
For one, you're not gonna burn out of your hands when you're dropping in. When you're using a Dutch oven, right?
Yeah.
This is your loaf of bread. This is what's gonna happen, right? You're like, oh, my wrist, ah!
Oh, you
And then,
stupid
yeah.
little fingers.
Yeah, and then you're dead. So that's not gonna work.
All right.
For $20, you can avoid that.
Yeah. With this. The Lodge Logic 3-quart combo cooker. Not sponsored. So what happens here is that the two
marriage.
are mated together
I've always wanted to do this with you.
as one.
Wow.
Look at my eyes. All right.
You're like,
Get away from me.
So always you want to preheat this with the oven. You want it ripping hot, which is exactly why you'll burn yourself with the other one. Go figure.
Are we starting this in a hot oven or a cold oven?
Cold. You're gonna close it, and then we're gonna put it in the cold oven, preheat at 500 Fahrenheit.
All right. Now, my oven can go quite a bit hotter than that. Do you want it hotter or do you want 500? We'll do 500.
We'll do 500. All right, okay. No, I think that's okay. That's gonna be
Don't want to
just,
make it unfair for you
just
guys.
thing. Yeah, that's fine.
I'm going to put this in the oven now.
700 degrees. Okay.
So now, we are making, which part are we making right now?
We're gonna make the levain. So this is the thing that is like, if you want bread,
Yeah.
right? And it's nice and voluminous and airy and it melts in your mouth. But the bigger problem is if you don't have a leaven, then really you're just gonna kind of get a brick. So essentially what you would use is something that already is airy and poofed up.
So this is the levain.
Yes.
And this is going to help the bread's texture, interior texture, the crumb of the bread. And how exactly does it do that?
For one, this is like the breath to the air. Think of it like a balloon getting filled up with air, right? The dough is full of a matrix of gluten and it's stretchy and it can expand and you can stretch it. You can see that you can stretch it. With this, basically what it's gonna do is there's actual like wild yeast that are in here that are going to, when we mix it in, it's gonna consume the carbohydrate. It's gonna spit out carbon dioxide, or well, actually it's kind of like eating it and then farting it out in a way. With that whole chemical process, what's gonna happen is it's gonna have a bunch of air pockets that form naturally because of nature, and it's going to rise and expand.
Okay, well, let's make one.
Yeah.
All right, so to make our levain, we need 35 grams of our starter.
So we need to fresh it, right? It needs food. It's hungry. It's got hungies. Okay. Bread flour, 35 grams. You're very. Oh, that's not very mathematical.
Well, f***ing A.
Whoa!
Next.
Oh my God. Yeah. So another 35 grams of whole wheat.
Okay.
Now 70 grams of water. It can be room temp. It's totally fine. Now you're gonna mix it. You need a spatula. You don't have to do this one by hand. Yeah.
You said I have to do everything by
Okay,
hand.
fine. Do it by hand. You can do it by hand.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a little wet.
It's a little wet.
It's all right.
We got, this will become our levain. We just gotta let it sit for how long?
For 5 hours.
Are we saran wrapping this, or do we want air to be able to escape, or what's the?
Light lid. Just cover it with the mason jar top. No screwing down because it'll explode. It'll actually, like, I've had it explode.
That's good to know. All right, so we're gonna let this sit for 5 hours. It's gonna bubble and froth up with life and activity, and then we're gonna be able to make some bread out of it.
Yes.
All right, let's go play some Mario Kart. Our starter is started. Our levain is levain.
Levant.
Yes, and so what are we doing now?
So now we need to mix our dough. I think. Arolis.
Let's make some dough. What do you want? You want a bowl?
Yes, I want a bowl. We're gonna need a big bowl for it. Yes, much better. So 810 grams of bread flour. You can do the honors.
Oh, thank you. I'm 1 gram off. You can flagellate me.
Yeah, you have to do it with your eyes closed. So
No, I'm just, that's not what I said. Good enough.
Cool. Yeah, and then 80 grams of whole wheat flour.
All right. And this is just to, it's not only to give a little bit of nuttiness and flavor, but also because this has the germ in it, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Sorry, how many grams was it?
80 grams. Though it's gonna go up to 900 grams.
Wait, that 80 grams plus 810 is 890.
So then it should be 90 then.
Okay. Math is not my strong suit. But
No, yeah, you're right. I don't know why I...
This is why we need 2 eyes on everything in this kitchen. Okay, we got 900 total grams of flour, 810 bread, 90 wheat.
Yes. Now you gotta mix it. Always mix by hand though.
All right.
Always.
You don't want me to whisk this?
I don't want you to whisk it. So
You can tell this audience that you don't want me to tiny whisk this.
you can tiny whisk it if you want, but honestly,
Sick.
the thing is, with bread, in my opinion, I really think that everything needs to be mixed by hand. You're never really gonna get good at making sourdough bread unless you're actually like feeling it.
Yeah.
And you know, you gotta get close, have some romance with it a little bit.
All right, we got some water here. It's not quite 90 degrees. It's we got an 88er over here.
It's good. It's good. It's just fine.
All right, so I'm adding 600 milliliters. So what's happening now?
Cool. So you're gonna mix it, yeah, with your hand and everything. Get your hand all f***ed up and dirty.
And am I
You're gonna have
trying
to get used to it.
So,
Yeah, so
what kind of consistency are we looking for here?
We're looking to just mix it until it's hydrated. You don't need to. You're not kneading it. You're just like, you don't want to get too much gluten development per se. You just want to get all the flour hydrated.
So almost like we're starting a no-knead dough, practically.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Just like a sensuous, like slap it around a little bit. Yeah, there you go. There we go. There we go.
All right, so I got a nice shaggy thing happening
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's good. That's perfect.
So now what are we doing?
Saran wrap. Let it sit 1 hour.
1 hour.
Best way to get that off is to do this.
Ooh.
There you go. Yeah, people will like that.
You like that, Jake?
Maybe turn that up to like 300 frames per second for real slow. Yeah.
Oh. Such a dirty boy. Was it good for you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, so it's been 5 hours. And look at it, it's totally different. It's even in a different container.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
That'll happen every time. It'll always change containers.
yeah, no, it's really cool. Yeah, so this is nice and bubbly now. We got a lot of activity going there. So let's put it to good use, shall we?
Yes. So that's all yours.
Thank you. Let's see what's happening here. So this should be better hydrated than we left it.
Yep. It's a little lumpy. Yeah.
Yeah, a little lumpy.
But feel it though.
Oh, yeah.
See, it's like nice and soft. It's supple. So you're gonna add that straight to the top.
So we want to get every last little bit of leaven in there.
There we go.
That's about as much as I'm going to get out
That's
of there.
perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Cool. So grab your water. Yep. So we're not going to pour it in yet. First, dip your fingers, your right hand. Yep. Dip, dip, dip. And then that's going to keep it from sticking. You're going to spread it out. Like spread it out around the dough. Like rub the.
Spread this out.
Yep. Don't be afraid. Yep.
I'm not afraid, Josh. You said it was going to keep it from sticking?
Yeah. Well, you know, you didn't put enough water in your hands.
Oh, okay. Didn't put enough water.
I'm sorry. Okay, dip them again, and then dip them like really just get. You know what? Just pour it on your hands. Yeah, pour a little on it. Yeah, pull it. Yeah, yeah.
Oop, okay.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good.
It's going in
now
here
dimple
anyway.
it. Dimple it like. Yeah, yeah.
What's this doing?
So you're gonna help. It's gonna help incorporate into the dough because this part can be a little bit difficult, right? You're gonna keep the rest of that water because we're gonna need it later. So now use your fingers to then sort of like dig in there and then mix. Okay, so now I'm gonna teach you this is a method that's gonna do two things. It's gonna help develop the gluten a little bit. It's gonna help incorporate the starter a little bit. Let's run your finger along, get that starter all on the sides of the bowl there. Yep. Okay, so now hold the bowl with your left hand, and you're gonna shape your hand into sort of like a scooping shape, and you're gonna scoop and slap the dough back down. Yeah, there you go, like this. Think like this. It's gonna make a very special sound for you.
Like that?
Beautiful.
Am I doing this right?
Yeah, can I actually show you real quick?
Yeah, show me.
And make it a little easier. So basically my hands form like a scoop, okay? You're gonna do a little bit of that. That always helps, right?
Yeah.
So you're picking it up.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
You know it's right when it makes this sound. And listen carefully.
All right, that makes a lot more sense.
There you go. Yeah, that looks really nice too. There you go. And we're gonna do that for 20, no, I'm joking. You can do it for about 2 minutes. So you already got a minute in, so let's get 1 more minute of that. This is why bakers have such great biceps. See how it's smoothing out too?
Yeah, it's getting nice. What are we looking for?
So 2 things. We're looking for incorporation. We're looking for slight smoothness around the dough. So start for a quick second. So you can see that? See how there's like almost like some air pockets sort of forming there. It's a little smoother. You can kind of stretch it now a little bit. Yeah. So you're developing the gluten. Now we can stop, cover it, let it rest 20 minutes just to get that fermentation going.
All right, so we're covering this up, letting it rest for 20 minutes. And then we're gonna add some salt and what, the rest of that water?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we keep this little bit of water to help incorporate the salt.
Well, howdy. Okay, well, let's go play some more Mario Kart. 2 rounds. Okay, it's been 20 minutes.
Yes. Okay, so water and salt, when you combine those two, so you need your scale.
All right. This is not the most accurate. How much salt do I need?
18 grams. Yeah.
All right, well, for that,
Yep, yeah, something a little better.
I'm gonna bust out the Snoop Dogg drugs scale. That's going to be ideal
That's key.
for this application.
This makes sense too, actually, because salt slows down fermentation. So if you're inaccurate about it, you're gonna screw your whole bread up.
17.98.
That'll do.
You happy, Pappy? All right.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's not gonna totally dissolve,
No,
which is
of
okay.
course. We'll just get most of it in there.
It's like a salt simple syrup. Yep.
All right, so this guy's going in.
Yep. Just swirl that around and toss it all in there. There you go. Same thing as before. Dimple it, poke it around. You know.
Well, we need to like incorporate.
Yeah, or
this
incorporate the
first.
water first. Yeah, let's see that. Oh, look at that matrix too. It's got like a nice webbing sort of going. You want to see the matrix? Welcome to the matrix.
Matrix is going.
Yeah. Okay.
Looks like it's mostly in
So
there.
dump it out on the counter. I'm gonna demo this for you, okay?
Please.
Right. So when you're slapping and folding, you can see how wet this is, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's already not sticking, which is a great sign. And it's not quite formed together. You got all this, which is not very good. So first thing you're gonna do is when you pick it up, right? A good way to practice is to fold it over. What a lot of people are gonna experience here is that it's really sticky and they're gonna get all scared. Don't get scared. You're gonna pick it up, slap it. If it starts sticking a lot, just keep doing this until it doesn't, because it'll eventually stop, right? This is really like broken down. It'll start to come together. See what I'm doing here? So first thing, slap down,
Stretch.
fold over.
Fold.
Slap.
You're turning it 90 degrees each time, so I'm going to go like this.
Yep.
Slap, fold.
Yeah, toss it a little bit when you fold it. They're beautiful. So you're gonna keep doing that until it becomes smooth. So it takes like 3 to 5 minutes.
All right.
So it's the way you're grabbing it initially. So instead of grabbing it from the side like that, so you're grabbing like this, grab underneath like a baby,
Oh,
roll,
I see.
and then grab at those ends. There, yeah, see, came right up. Because the gluten is folding over that direction, so you want to pick it up where they've already formed their strands.
Oh, that's way better.
Yeah, look at that. There you go. Yeah, that was it right there. That was it right there. That's beautiful.
All right, we ready to go?
Yeah. Now we put it in the bowl, let it rest.
All right, and then we're covering this back up?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So this guy's going to hang out for another, what?
It's gonna hang out for 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
We've done all the hard stuff.
One round of Mario Kart, I'd say. Let's do it. Okay, it's been 15 minutes.
Yes.
Now what are we doing?
I'm gonna do our first set of folds. Yeah, look at that. So it's like super,
Ooh, it's starting to smell nice and cheesy. Yogurt-like.
so always dip your hands in a little bit of water so that it doesn't stick to your hands, 'cause it's pretty freaking sticky. Right, so you're gonna grab it, stretch it, and notice how it's gonna sort of keep stretching and then it'll start to almost tear. Do not tear it, right? And you fold it over. And you're gonna repeat that all the way around the perimeter. You can see how nice that looks.
That is very pretty, yeah.
See it? We did a good ass job making that gluten, because look how stretchy that is.
Oh, yeah.
And look, see how smooth and glossy?
Right.
And then cover it
You want
back
me to
up
do it?
in 15 more minutes.
All right. Wow.
Well, yeah, you gotta take this off.
Wow.
Wow.
My
Give it a little
God.
jiggle, because it's, look at that, see that? That is aerated.
This is aerated. This is full of life.
It is, literally.
Now we're gonna form it into loaves, yeah?
Yep. I'm gonna dump it. I'm gonna try and get this as close to the center as possible. So at this point, we need to divide it, right? I usually eyeball it. Some people like to weigh it. This is so sticky. I mean, do you really want to play with that?
No,
So
let's eyeball it.
use some of this. I like to use flour to kind of like mark a divide. So I would say like halfway is gonna be maybe like right there. So water, right? I like to wet this a little bit and wet whatever hand you're gonna be touching the dough with so it doesn't stick to the dough.
Yep.
And then you're gonna go straight down. Oop, Jesus, sorry about that. Is it okay that I scrape the counter with this a little bit?
It happens to lots of guys.
You got it? You want me to do it?
Just watch what you did. You just kind of twisted it and turned it like this.
There you go. Yeah, hey, look at him. Cool, so we're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna kind of bring it around like that. So I would actually let this rest for like 3 minutes before we actually shape it.
So why are we letting it rest for 3 minutes?
Because it's a little taut, right? So if we pull,
You want to tear it?
you're gonna tear it, right? So what we're doing is we're pre-shaping it into a slightly sort of rounded shape first, like that, and we can just let them sit like that just for a hot second, just so that they can relax, let the gluten relax, and then we're gonna flip them over and shape them. This is nice. Wow, look at these. When they jiggle like that, you know.
Yeah, this looks like bread.
Do you want to flour these while we're waiting?
Sure.
Yeah, make sure to get the walls.
Well floured?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Did I do good?
Yeah. You did good.
All right.
You did good. Flour goes on. So we flour this top, and then you're gonna very gently sort of, right? So you want to make sure you get the edges, the back side, the front side. Okay, and then this part can be a little challenging for some people. I'll get like a little flower on here.
Okay.
Cool. You're gonna go under, under, under. Well, we're just loosening the bottom.
Sure.
Carefully flip, okay? So now this is sticky, but the other side is not, right? Are we watching? So this is gonna go up and down. It should adhere like that, and then this is gonna come up and over. Might need to hold that down, and then this up and over. Cool. So now we got this shape, right? And the last part is we're bringing this all the way down, right? So stretch and let it naturally fold, and then you're gonna close off, seal that bottom. I might have to do this with my hands. Cool.
All right. And so, wait, this isn't the loaf, is it? What's this? What's with the anus?
It's gonna.
There's an anus to this bread.
It's gonna go away. It'll help. It'll help. The anus is what gives it the gas that it needs, and it really actually does. You know what I mean, man? Like it's gonna do the thing.
This stuff writes itself. We want the anus. So, the thing I'm kind of discovering is that when handling bread, half of it is confidence. You just need to be like, you know what, I'm in charge right now. You hear that? So now I'm just sort of hitting this with a little bit of flour.
Yep.
Just so I can go.
Yeah, see, you get it.
So now we're flipping it?
Wait, when you flip it, you want to rely on that. So scoop under there and then use your hand to help fold it over.
Okay. Scoop.
Boom, boom. Look at that.
All right, so starting here.
Up into the center. Yep.
Up. Ooh, too much.
Yeah, he's got a little bit. There you go.
Up into the center.
Lightly. Okay.
Left side.
There you go. Beautiful. Okay. Right side. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Top all the way down. All the way down, all the way down, all the way down. Beautiful.
Leslie, do I have an asshole?
Yes, you have an asshole.
Kind of.
You have a big bubble.
Ooh, it's got a bubble in my asshole.
Yeah. It's good. Don't handle it too much. Yeah.
All right, there we go.
That's it. Yeah. So to transfer, right? So let's flour the top of this again. It's gonna stick. If you don't, you scoop, you flip, you fold, and you gently.
Interesting. You're putting the sticky side up.
Yes, and then so this is the bottom.
Oh no! I forgot these are Bannetons.
Yep, Bannetons. Yep. And then notice how I'm like stitching the top shut. Now that we've shaped it, the anus is gonna help with a spiral shape when this is expanding. So instead of expanding like out and out like that, what's gonna happen is it's gonna expand, like the anus is gonna expand.
It's going
like
to expand
yeah.
the way that it must. Let's demonstrate. Here we go. And 1, 2, 3. Just let it.
Oh, mine wasn't as circular.
That looks great.
Oh, mine looks like a heart.
Aw. Anyway, back to work. Just gonna go up, up.
Yeah,
Like this. That's it.
You actually closed it too. What you did here, when you closed yours, you actually closed the gap, so you don't have to do that on yours. Yeah.
Well, I'll be a son of a bitch.
I wasn't gonna teach people how to do that, but you just did it, so there you go.
Now these guys are going in the fridge.
Yeah, I think we give them a light cover with something, you know, like some plastic wrap on this.
Plastic wrap. Should we hit them with a little flour and then plastic?
I think so, yeah.
Boom. Now, is there any concern about it sticking to the plastic wrap?
Normally I would do this in a bag, but I think we'll have to work with it. I think we'll be fine if it's just like loosely wrapped.
We got a massively hot.
Very hot, yeah. It should be hot.
Smoke coming off of that.
Yeah, that's what you want.
All right, so what's the procedure for getting this in here?
Okay, so first, you can place that down, get your flour, and flour your butt. Okay, and then splash this with a little bit of flour, sort of, I would say like that, like where the loaf is gonna land, like that. Cool. So do you want me to plop it and show you the first one? Or?
Yeah, why don't you show us how it's done?
So, lower that down a little bit. Okay, and then you're gonna kind of support it on the way out. Don't burn your hand because it will burn the out of you. Okay, we're supporting it. Let her slide off. Okay, this will be done better with rice flour, by the way. It'll be a little sticky with AP. Okay, and we'll give it a splash of flour on top.
Splash of flour.
Cool. I'm gonna rub it down. I'm gonna turn that off, and then.
How are you gonna score it?
So I'm gonna score it, right, so this is really important. You don't wanna score straight down. You wanna score totally flat. I would score it more like a 45-30. So you're gonna hold it. Okay, so you're gonna come down, and notice the angle that I'm at, right? You go down, kind of dig that, and then,
ooh, cool. Just one?
Just one.
All right.
Cool. Yeah, it's about a half inch, quarter inch. It's somewhere where you want it to be. Okay, so I'll bring the bad boy over. This goes straight on. Hotness, yeah. And then we're gonna need 2 gloves for this. You wanna do the transfer?
Oh, yeah, I'll do it. All right, can you grab the oven door for me?
I got you.
In she goes for what, 45 minutes?
20, like that, and then we're gonna lower the temp.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Ready? And now,
20 minutes.
20 minutes,
This
and
is
then
the
we're
steam.
lowering the temperature to what?
We're gonna, so 20 minutes, take the lid off, and then we're gonna lower the temp to 450.
See you there, folks,
Kids,
buds,
however, whatever your age is,
friends, of all
homies,
ages.
young homies, big homies, any homie.
Ooh, baby. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, fill the bottom, like tap the bottom.
All right, so now we gotta wait an hour before we need it. Put this on a cooling rack,
Yeah.
right? Hour and a half.
Yeah, till it's cool. When it's cool.
All right, let's do loaf number 2 with fresh flour.
Yep. Ooh, look at that.
All right.
Give a little.
Right down here, you'd say.
You can go deeper.
Does this need to be deeper?
I think that does need to be deeper a little bit. Yeah, let's go a little deeper. There you go. Oof. There you go. Now we're talking there. Look at that.
And ooh, let's get right through the glove there.
And 1, 2, and 3. It's a 20 minutes.
All right. Oh, dearie me, that's a loaf of bread. This looks perfect, and yes, this looks great. Daddy. And there are 2 loaves of gorgeous sourdough bread. So now we just wait 20 some odd minutes till we can eat these boys. Not
Yeah.
20
No,
minutes.
definitely not 20 minutes.
Hour?
An
2
hour,
hours?
about an hour. Should take about an hour. Yeah, you want them to be cooled down. If you cut it to it while it's hot, you're gonna lose a lot of goodness.
Oh, we should get some really good butter while we're out.
Yes, we should.
All right, well, let's go sit motionless for 2 hours until these are ready.
Staring it deeply into each other's eyes.
All right, we got some bread.
I think we did good.
It looks really nice. The color on this one.
This is intentionally dark. You don't ever want to cook a good, proper, artisanal loaf of sourdough blonde because you're losing so much flavor.
Yeah, all this dark stuff up here, it would be almost like caramelized sugars essentially because it's the natural sugars occurring in the bread. Is there there's natural sugars?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so those are caramelizing. You're getting all these deep dark flavors up there.
And it's also toasting the wheat at the same time. So you're basically, it's like, if you were to, put nuts on something and not toast them, you're losing a bunch of flavor. You should always toast them first.
Yeah. So let's get a little silence for some crackle, please. Oh, you're taking the thumbs in there.
Yeah. They can handle it.
Oh, it's spraying me. Let's crack one of these suckers open.
Yeah.
Here we go. Moment of truth. Ah, that's bread, dude. That's bread.
Beautiful.
Oh. Oh, God, it smells good. Give that a sniff.
Came through on the fermentation. Look at that. Feel how soft that is.
Beautiful. So soft. And the crumb structure is so good. There's no huge pockets in here, but it's nice and irregular. So thank you very much for coming forward and showing me how to do this. Let us eat some. Cheers.
Cheers. It's like a crisp cracker on the outside. The inside is like pure air, but it's got chew and pull to the crumb.
And so much flavor. Like, despite all the butter and salt we just dumped on there,
Yeah.
it still very clearly tastes of sourdough.
It's hard to overpower something this good. To me, this has all the textures that the human palate always wants in one bite.
Crunchy, soft, chewy.
It's got that pull to it, yeah.
Well, that is easily the best loaf of bread. I mean, we made it, but that I've ever had my hands in. And definitely the best loaf of bread that's come out of this house. So
Yeah,
thank you so
then
much
I
for
go
coming
to
out.
sleep
Congrats
now.
on 1 million
You
subscribers.
guys
1
have
million
fun.
subscribers. Joshua Weissman. Go like and subscribe. I
I'm
never
gonna
say it. I
send
only
you
say it about
something,
myself.
Firefox. You do it
Saying about him.
for the email.
Is it bad if I've never had one before?
Well, we're going now, so it's all right. It's never too late, okay? It's never too late.
It's fine.
11 years ago now that I had my first Love and cookie. This is a New York staple at this point. I don't know what
Let me guess. Someone stole your sweet roll.
Hey, what's up, guys? Babish, for this week, we're finally taking a look at sweet rolls from Skyrim, courtesy of a sponsor. sponsorship from the Elder Scrolls Online Greymoor, an award-winning online role-playing game where you can join 15 million players to defeat an ancient vampiric army threatening Western Skyrim in the darkest Elder Scrolls saga yet. Follow the link in the video description to find out how you can join the fight, but before you head into battle, let's replenish 5 health and whip us up some sweet rolls, which if you play the game, you know that the recipe calls for 1 salt pile, 1 jug of milk, 1 sack of flour, 1 butter, and 1 chicken's egg. So to start off, I wanted to see if I could make a sweet roll using only these ingredients, and my mind went immediately to Yorkshire pudding, the traditional version of which we're going to make by combining 120 grams of sifted all-purpose flour with a 1/4 teaspoon each kosher salt and freshly ground pepper, tiny whisked to combine, and then we're going to add 2 large cold eggs, which we're going to whisk into a paste. We need to do this one-handed, so wrap your bowl in a wetted kitchen towel and whisk the egg and flour mixture together until it's relatively smooth. Then we're going to slowly stream in half a cup of cold milk, whisking constantly in an effort to minimize lumps, of which there are going to be many, so you're going to need to thoroughly whisk this until it's as smooth as you can get it. If there are still a few small lumps, that's okay, because we're going to wrap this in plastic wrap and chill it for at least half an hour, ideally overnight. When ready to make your Yorkshire puddings, we're going to dump about a half a tablespoon of vegetable oil into the cavities of a muffin tin, which we're going to preheat in a 425-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 10 minutes or until smoking. It's during this time that we're going to give our nice cold batter one final whisking, pour it into a container with a spout, and use that spouted container to quickly fill our preheated muffin cavities about halfway full. Make sure you get all these perfectly even, otherwise you're going to have kind of a half-assed one at the end here. But no matter, these guys are headed into that 425-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 15 minutes or until golden brown and super puffed. Evacuate immediately onto a wire rack and consume while still hot. Now, maybe you can see what I was going for here. There's a hole in the middle, but these things get pretty tough and kind of leathery after being allowed to cool to room temperature. I tried to make a version where I left out the ground pepper and added butter to the milk, both to make this video game accurate and to try to give these things a better texture once cooled. I also baked them in preheated tube pans to try to get the shape right, but they turned out pretty dense and gummy, which you can imagine was a bit of an arrow in the knee. So I decided to turn, as I so often do, to the official Elder Scrolls cookbook, which calls for combining 3 tablespoons of melted butter with 1 cup of warm whole milk, 2 tablespoons of honey, and 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. Tiny whisking with a large egg and a pinch of salt, and mixing together with 2 cups of all-purpose flour until a smooth batter forms. We're then going to generously butter our miniature bundt cake or tube pans, spoon the batter inside, make sure to wipe up all the icky excess, make sure that everybody's perfectly aligned with the camera, cover with plastic wrap and let rest at room temperature for 30 minutes, during which time your batter should expand twice-fold. We're then carefully unwrapping our little sort of yeasted cakes, placing them on a small rimmed baking sheet and placing that in a preheated 350-degree Fahrenheit oven. There they shall stay for about 15 minutes or until lightly browned and a toothpick inserted in the thickest point emerges clean. Then after letting them cool in the pans for about 5 minutes, we're going to pop them out and let them cool completely on a wire rack, during which time we're going to make our frosting. Now, to get that Skyrim sweet roll look, we need to achieve a very specific viscosity. I found that a ratio of 200 grams confectioner sugar to 45 grams low-fat milk was just right, making a glaze that just sort of gently drapes over the top of the sweet rolls. And there you have it, sweet rolls via the Elder Scrolls official companion cookbook. They sure do look the part, but what do they taste like? The answer is not bad, but not great either. I'd imagine they're very accurate to how they would taste in the game, sort of a bready, relatively bland medieval snack. But what if we want a sweet roll as tasty and tubular as it is in our imagination? For that, I think we gotta turn to brioche, the sweet, eggy, buttery, flaky bread of your dreams. Into the bowl of a stand mixer goes 510 grams of all-purpose flour, 60 grams of granulated sugar, about 14 grams of active dry yeast, or maybe 10-12 grams of instant yeast, and about 15 grams of kosher salt, tiny whisked into a state of homogeneity, before placing to the base of a stand mixer and adding 4 large room temperature eggs. We do not want any cold liquids in this recipe, as it's going to make it a lot harder to emulsify butter into the dough later on. Affix dough hooks and begin to mix and knead together for about 4 to 6 minutes. We want all the dry ingredients to be incorporated into the eggs, and the dough should just start to look a little smooth. Scrape down the sides of the bowl and the dough hook as necessary, and then it's time to start adding the butter. This is where your stand mixer is going to start to pay for itself. I tried to do this by hand once and damn near quit cooking altogether. So with the stand mixer running on low, 1 or 2 small pieces at a time, we're going to start adding 225 grams or 2 sticks of high quality unsalted room temperature butter. After each addition, crank up the speed a little bit and allow the butter to incorporate entirely into the dough. This is going to take well, it's going to take a good long while, anywhere from 4 to 8 minutes between each addition, and especially slow at the beginning of the process. Fight the urge to move any faster and wait until the dough is starting to clear the sides of the bowl before adding any more butter. If you move too fast, the dough could break and separate into an oily, shaggy mass. And as far as I know, there's no remedy for that other than starting over from butter square one. Once you've added your final hunk of butter and allowed it to incorporate completely into the dough, we're going to crank the stand mixer onto medium speed and allow it to knead for 5 to 8 minutes until it very nearly cleans the sides of the bowl and becomes impossibly soft and smooth and silky. Unfortunately, half of bread baking is kind of knowing what it needs to feel like, and the first time you make a proper brioche dough, you know it. It's super soft and buttery and almost flowy without being too sticky. It even comes straight out of the bowl without putting up a fuss. Now onto an unfloured countertop, we're going to start working this into a smooth, taut ball. Simply find the smoothest facet of your dough, make it face the sky, and start passing the dough back and forth between your hands, pinching the edges against the table as you go. This is going to pull the exterior of your dough ball super taut. Now it is time for the first rise. Into a generously buttered bowl goes our boule. Plop it into the bowl, seam side down, cover with plastic wrap, and let it sit at room temperature for anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes or until doubled in size. Now we're just going to pop it back out onto the countertop real quick, punch it down, and to help develop its gluten network, we're going to perform a series of folds. Start at the top of your dough, fold it in towards the center, and repeat working your way around the dough until you've completed 6, 7, 8, 9 folds. Can you tell why I'm a terrible baker? Then repeat the edge pinching technique to pull your dough ball taut, and at this point you could return it to a buttered bowl to let it rise for 1 hour before shaping, proofing, and baking. But if you want better flavor and texture, you might want to consider giving it anywhere from 12 to 48 hours in the fridge, after which time it should have puffed up a little bit, but not too much. Carefully pull it out the bowl, and then depending on what you're doing with it, divide it into pieces. If you want to make a good old-fashioned easy peasy loaf of brioche bread, divide it in half, turn the half dough out onto a well-floured work surface and roll it out into a rectangle about as wide as your intended loaf pan. Then roll it up lengthwise so it'll fit inside the loaf pan, hide the seams underneath the roll, generously butter and flour a non-stick loaf pan, plop the roll inside, cover loosely with plastic wrap, and let rest at room temperature for anywhere from 1 hour and 45 minutes to 2.5 hours. You want it to have about doubled in size and not spring back fully or with vigor when poked. That's how you know it's ready for a wash with a beaten egg, and about a 45-minute stint in a 375-degree Fahrenheit oven, rotating halfway through baking and tenting with foil if it starts to get too brown too fast. You know that it's done when its deeply golden brown makes a hollow thump when you thump it on the bottom, and when its thickest point registers between 195 and 210 degrees Fahrenheit. Make sure to allow to cool completely about 1.5 hours before slicing and devouring. Now this is an absolutely resplendent loaf of brioche, but as so often happens, I've completely lost track of what I'm doing. So this time we are buttering and flouring our miniature tube pans so we can achieve that hole in the middle sweet roll style look. And once we've coated those generously in stick protection, we're going to divide that remaining half of the dough batch into 4 pieces, each of which we're going to roll into a ball. And then almost like we're forming a bagel, we're going to punch a hole directly in the center of the ball so that our little brioche donut fits perfectly into our tube pan. We're then going to press it firmly into the tube pan to make sure that there are no underlying bubbles, since these little guys are going to be inverted when served. Likewise, we are covering them with plastic wrap and allowing them to rest at room temperature, this time for anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes, again depending on the heat, humidity, and draftiness of your room. Once they pass the poke test, they are headed onto a rim baking sheet where I'm gonna brush them down with beaten egg for some reason, even though they're going to be served upside down, and then into a 375-degree Fahrenheit oven for 25 to 35 minutes, given their much smaller size signature. Immediately remove them from their tins, otherwise you're going to end up with soggy brioche, and these guys are looking pretty spot on if you ask me. They look really rustic and kind of freeform, but as excited as I am, I must wait until they've cooled completely before frosting. Same procedure here, just gently drape the glaze over the top of the sweet roll, letting it cascade down the sides in that distinctive Skyrimian pattern. And there you have it, folks. Tender, flaky, buttery, eggy, springy, airy, and lightly sweet rolls. And I gotta say, this is how I always imagine them looking, feeling, smelling, tasting, and sounding. The brioche is super tender and flaky, but it's got a nice toothsome quality from all that gluten development, and it's incredibly rich from all the butter, so it plays really nice with that super sweet topping. It is a member of the Clean Plate Club and undoubtedly one of my favorite things that I've ever made. But I'm not stopping there, because you see, Bethesda challenged me to make a sweet roll fit for a giant, perhaps as an apology for all the mammoth cheese stolen over the years. So I've got 2 batches of brioche dough here that I'm pounding out into a disc and getting ready to place in a full-size tube pan, which of course I'm going to coat generously with both butter and flour. Then I'm going to use a biscuit cutter to punch a hole in the center of my disc, drop it down into my tube pan, making sure to press down so there are no trapped bubbles underneath the dough, wrap in plastic wrap and let roughly double in size. And this time I'm placing in a 350-degree Fahrenheit oven for close to an hour, because this sweet roll gets up, gets down with the thickness. I'm also going to loosely tent it with foil when it inevitably starts to brown too quickly. I'm taking it out once the internal temperature of 200 degrees Fahrenheit has been reached, removing from the tube pan and allowing to cool completely on a wire rack, at least 3 hours. But let's take a look at this first. That is going to make one big ol' sweet roll. 3 hours later and we are ready to frost. I am whipping up an extra big batch of the glaze and simply pouring it over the top of our upside down brioche bunt. And in retrospect, I made this guy a little too tall because I wanted to recreate that sort of sweet roll look, but you could totally make a single batch of dough and bake it as a bunt cake and it would be amazing. Anyway, we might as well get a cross section of this guy as long as we're here. I'm honestly shocked to find that the crumb is actually pretty nice. So now I can say with confidence that this is both the biggest and best sweet roll I've ever made. And it's all thanks to the folks at Bethesda for sponsoring this episode and making some of the best games of all time, including The Elder Scrolls Online Greymoor. The dark heart of Skyrim beats from the depths in Elder Scrolls Online Greymoor.
Order up. Hope you like it. No, come on. You should try my dad's secret ingredient soup. He actually knows the secret ingredient.
What are you talking about? Oh, this is amazing.
Wow, you're a really good cook.
I wish my mouth was bigger.
Tigress, you've got to try this.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Binging with Babish, where this week we're taking a look at the secret ingredient noodle soup from Kung Fu Panda. The only known ingredients of which are noodles and soup, and maybe what looks like a daikon radish. The only other thing we know is that there is no actual secret ingredient, so we need to take every effort to make each element as special as possible. Let's start with the soup. I'm going for a pork-based broth inspired by flavors from the Guangxi province, the most important ingredient of which are the bones, which, as you can see, I'm having some second thoughts about here because these bones smell like they've been frozen for a long time. And when you're putting this amount of time and energy into a recipe, you need to get some ingredients that you fully trust. I got these bones very inexpensively from Pinot's Prime Meats, and they only smell like pork. Now, we could make this broth strictly out of bones, but I'm going to add some short ribs and this pig's tail to provide a little bit more meat and collagen to give the broth more body. Into a very tall and narrow stock pot they go, just the bones and meats at first, and are we sure this is a pig's tail, fellas? We're going to cover those with cold water and bring them to a simmer on the stovetop. It's going to draw any blood and scum and impurities out of the bones and meat, which is going to form a gray, foamy, scummy layer on top of the water. Skim this off, drain, and scrub the bones and meat clean until they look like this. And now back into the emptied and clean stock pot they go, along with a handful of aromatics, which you can mix and match as you see fit or as they are available. I'm going to start with a little handful of licorice root, a healthy-sized chunk of cassia bark or Chinese cinnamon, or just cinnamon really. Toss that in there along with a few pieces of dried tangerine peel. You could probably also use fresh orange peel. I'm also going to add a handful of dried longan fruit, a handful of dried star anise pods, a whole onion quartered, and a handful of fresh ginger roughly peeled. And this might not be traditional, but I'm going to add a couple carrots just to round out the flavors. Then I've got something special here, some dried Chinese scallops. These are very expensive. This little handful was like $18, and they smell pretty very bad, but they are a huge umami booster for soups, stews, and broths, so we're going to add maybe 4. Seems like a good amount, I guess, I don't know. And then we are again covering everything with cold water and bringing to a bare simmer. We're going to take one more opportunity at the beginning of the boil to skim off any scum, and then we're letting this guy go slow and low for at least 4 hours and up to 12. Now, unlike, say, a tonkatsu ramen broth, we want this to just barely bubble so it stays nice and clear. Once the flavors and colors are nice and deep and your whole house smells like warm, spicy pork water, strain, cool in an ice bath, refrigerate overnight, and get some restorative sleep, especially if you're about to do what I'm about to do. No, not bang your head on the table. I'm only doing that because I'm a food YouTuber and I've come to the unassailable conclusion that it's about time that I fulfill my destiny and try to make hand-pulled noodles, a skill that supposedly takes 10 years to master. I have 2 days, so go ahead and lower your expectations. There are basically 4 elements to any hand-pulled noodle: flour, water, salt, and an alkaline solution. I'm using this commercially available mix of potassium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate. You can find it at many Asian grocers. If you cannot, go ahead and check out my ramen video in the upper right-hand corner right now to see how to make baked baking soda. The next thing to nail down is the ratio of these ingredients. There's conflicting information all over the internet, and the recipe can apparently be affected by things like your altitude or the humidity in the air. So take this recipe with a grain of potassium carbonate, so to speak, because everyone seems to have a recipe for the perfect hand-pulled noodles, and everyone else seems to think that everyone else is wrong. I tried a litany of different hydration ratios and kneading tactics, and these are the ones that worked best for me. Did you hear the air quotes around best? I hope you did, because this, no matter what you do, is going to be a very difficult process. I've got a dough here of 500 grams bread flour, 306 grams of water, 5 grams of salt, and 4 grams of potassium carbonate. I mixed it until just combined in a stand mixer, and now I'm going to knead it into submission for 40 minutes. Here we go. The objective here is to develop the gluten, or rather overdevelop it, until the dough more closely resembles chewed chewing gum than dough. If, like me, you are not an experienced hand-pulled noodle puller, you might not even come close to that consistency in this amount of time. So give it your very, very best for 40 minutes straight, and then cover with plastic wrap and let rest for 15 to 20 minutes, which will allow your gluten to kick its feet up and relax a little bit. As you can see, I've got my other experiments here in the foreground, and as you can see, our gluten has become very well developed. But we have to take it several orders of magnitude beyond that, and if you're a hand-pulled noodle newbie like me, old-fashioned kneading is only going to get you so far. Now we're going to get into something I'm going to call tug kneading, or the act of gently tugging on the dough until it's elongated, folding it over on top of itself, and repeating the process. This is not only going to continue to develop, but also apparently help align our gluten, which, as I understand it, for some reason needs to be aligned. Now, this process might take you 20 minutes, it might take you 45 minutes, it might take you 2 hours. The only indicators that you're close to being done are the right texture and maybe a more athleisure appropriate shirt. About the only advice that I can offer you at this point is just don't give up. I mean, sure, anyone can go to their local Asian grocer and get fresh noodles that are arguably better than what you could make yourself. And it would be cheap, and it would be easy, and it would be convenient, and it wouldn't physically exhaust you, but I can't quite remember what my point was here. And as you can see, our dough is starting to get closer to the right texture. So we're just going to keep going. And something important to keep in mind is your dough's hydration. During all these lengthy tugging sessions, it's bound to lose some moisture. So every 4 to 6 turns, you might want to pat it down and brush it down with water before folding it in half once again. It should straddle the line somewhere between a very hydrated bread dough and pasta dough. Pounding it against the table as you stretch also helps. I'm not entirely sure why, but I see it in every video. Anyway, go ahead and take a break once you've worked up an actual head sweat and become so delirious from all the dough that you've kneaded over the past 14 hours that you forget to put your apron back on. But finally, all that effort is yielding results. At long last, my dough finally resembles chewed bubblegum. So that means we can finally work on the only remaining ingredient of our soup, some daikon radish. Or at least that's what it looked like Po was putting in the soup. So I'm just going to peel and slice off a bunch of slices and put them in the broth as I heat it up. Maybe let those simmer for about 20 minutes until they're nice and soft. Just enough time to finally do the deed and pull some noodles. I've got half the dough here, which I'm also going to divide in half so it's a little easier to work with. Keep the other pieces covered, and let's give our guy a stretch. Give it a few slaps on the tabletop. This seems to prevent it from tearing too much. Stretch it out nice and long, give it a little roll to make sure that it's even. And then, since we don't want the noodles to stick to themselves, we're going to dust this guy down with flour. Once it's all evenly dusted, it's time to fold it, stretch it, and repeat until we have noodles. Now, the 10 years of training it takes to become a noodle master covers not only your ability to develop a glutinous dough in like 20 minutes instead of the 3 some odd hours it took me, but it also covers your ability to actually stretch out the noodles, because this is extraordinarily hard. And after 2 failed tries, I decided to give up before I ruined all my dough, opting instead to stretch out each noodle one at a time. This makes for a somewhat flat, pretty uneven noodle, but it's better than kneading multiple batches of dough for hours and hours with no noodles to show for it. And so there you have it, a handful of my very best attempt at hand-pulled noodles. Do I recommend trying this at home? Absolutely not, unless you need a new lifelong hobby. Anyway, we're treating them just like we would pretty much any fresh noodle, cooking quickly and gently for no more than 90 seconds. During this time, we're going to check our broth for seasoning. Mine needs a lot of salt. Make sure it tastes as righteous as it smells, and then it's time to serve up. First, we're just going to scoop out the noodles using a sieve and dump them into an empty bowl. And then over top, we ladle our broth, marrying together flavor and texture. Make sure you don't forget a couple slices of daikon radish, and then it's time to tuck in. These might not be the prettiest noodles in the world, but they're mine. And don't you let anyone ever tell you otherwise. I'm very happy to report that they're delightfully light and chewy and springy, and the broth is deep and rich and warm and spicy and complex. It's served very simply in the movie, but I'm going to add a handful of Chinese chives or scallions and a dollop of chili oil. Two things I'm quite simply not going to enjoy noodle soup without. Now, while this was delicious, the sting of failure prevented me from entering it into the Clean Plate Club. I have an idea for how to hack the noodles, but if we're going to do that, we might as well make our own chili oil from scratch. Because believe it or not, it's miles ahead of the store-bought stuff. Into a small saucepan goes a handful of Szechuan peppercorns, star anise pods, cassia bark, a knob of peeled ginger, and 3 lightly crushed cloves of garlic. Then over that, we're going to pour 2 to 3 cups of a neutral flavored oil. I'm going with canola. We're going to gently swirl that over medium heat on the stovetop until the oil reaches about 325 degrees Fahrenheit, at which point we're going to strain it and pour it over about a cup of Szechuan chili flakes. Make sure you're doing this in a very heat-proof bowl, otherwise you might be looking at a disaster for both your countertop and the skin of your feet. Give it a little mix, make sure that those flavors have gotten to know each other before setting aside for about 30 minutes to cool, just enough time to negotiate our noodles. Here I have some of the dough after its initial 45-minute knead. As you can see, it's off to an ugly start, but as we laminate it and pass it through over and over again, rolling it out like pasta dough, it becomes supple and tame and perfect for passing through a spaghetti cutter. What results is almost more reminiscent of ramen noodles, so while maybe less impressive, they are, at least in my mind, perfectly suitable for the task at hand. Same deal, boil in water for no more than 90 seconds until they're tender but chewy. Drain into an awaiting warm bowl, maybe don't use a spider like this unless you want a perilous noodle situation, and serve with the boiling hot broth ladled gently over top. And there you have it, a much more achievable but still distinctly homemade secret ingredient noodle soup. If you guys will excuse me for a second, I am just a mess. Give my apron a bit of a bachelor shower here. And of course we're garnishing with Chinese chives and our homemade chili oil. And while these noodles might have been way prettier while remaining just as delicate and springy as the hand-pulled ones, I almost preferred my first batch. Imperfection is sometimes what makes something unique or distinctive or familiar. And had I learned nothing from Mr. Ping, that there is no secret ingredient, there's no secret way to make perfect noodles, the only perfect noodles can be found in one place, in your heart. And oh my god, never mind, it was delicious, I ate the whole bowl.
为什么面跟水就融在一起？为什么可以
10個の目として10次元と言ってるんですけれども。
首先，做拉面的这个过程，就是面粉跟水的比例一定要掌握好。天气冷的话，那就要多加一些水；天气热的话，那就要少加一些水。它没有一个固定的次数，它是要看自己的经验、自己的手感，你去摸。我从小有3个梦想，第一个梦想是做厨师。从小在餐馆里长大，我就经常跑到厨房里面，我看到厨师在那里炒菜的时候，那个火就喷出来，哇，我就觉得太酷了。偷偷的，我经常有去练。还有一次差点把那个厨房给弄起火了。油烧热了以后，我倒进去很多水，那个油就呜一下就崩得很高，把我吓得我就跑出去了，啊，被我妈妈骂死了。但是我还是觉得很酷。这个过程中面就已经很有弹性了，摔的意思就是要把面的弹性给它激发出来，你去感受什么时候可以拉得起来。我小的时候特别能吃，把我家人都吓死了。 他们不在的时候，我就偷偷做面条，不好吃我也全部给他吃掉。成为一个师傅，每天至少要拉100碗，他们家最少要做500碗，所以我学拉面比其他人要快5倍，这样我才能成为一个拉面的师傅。现在就可以去拉面了。就像挑战一样，1变2，2变4，4变8。知道做一件事要做10年以上才是一个师傅吗？我现在已经过了这个10年的点，10秒钟可以做出来128根面。第二个梦想是做演员，做演员跟做面有很大的关系。我以前是在舞台上来表演、唱歌、跳舞，现在这个拉面板就是我现在的舞台，用面来跳舞，观众的笑声就是我的掌声。那我已经完成了2个梦想了，还有一个就是做中医，这个梦想是完成不了了。因为这个是关系到人的生命的。其实人很多的时候，并不是身体上的疾病，并不是生理上的疾病，而是他心理上的疾病。那我现在在做吃的时候，好了，让这个人吃得很开心，跟中医也是一样的。妈妈对我做饭的影响还是挺大的。在中国开的一家小餐馆，当时只有4张桌子，也只卖1种产品。他就是会告诉我，你要做这个东西就要把它给做好，不然的话你就不要去做，只要做好1样就可以了。所以我现在的餐馆也没有很多东西，只有面，没有其他的。当时我并没有想拿做这道菜来开餐馆。我只是喜欢这个，以后我想给我的老婆做，或者给我的小孩做。我很小的时候就有这个概念。全世界每个地方都有面的文化，意大利有面，对不对？印度的飞饼也是面嘛，日本还有 soba， 各有特色，各有各的味道。日本的 soba 在我印象当中就是真的好神奇。我有幻想过。
お蕎麦はだいたい4つのプロセスで構成されてて、早くその4つの工程を終わらせなきゃいけないんですけど、長すぎるとグルテンがないので切れてしまうんですね。だいたい水と粉を混ぜる水回しというプロセスですね。ただ単に水を混ぜるんじゃなくて、粉と水ってなかなか混ざらないんですね。若い時は陸上競技 100m の短距離をやっておりまして、その大地は僕にエネルギーをくれる、蹴る代わりに彼らからこうもっと頑張れというか、そういうのを頭で考えて覚えるよりも体でキャッチするのが僕のスペシャルなところかなと。最初のステップ、サンドガーデンと言われる、要は粉の状態を体で感じる作業。その次がボルケーノっていう作業って僕言ってるんですけれども、その粉を空中でぶつけていくんですね。そうすると重力に逆らって粉のなんていうんですかね、重力だけで結びつき始めるんですよね。で最後にオーシャンウェーブっていうのは、それがもう最初のノートボルケーノと全然違うって、今度は体全体のバランス全てを使って、ビッグウェーブ大海原にこう叩き合わせられているような感じで、今度は銅につなぎ合わせてるんですね。なぜ目をつぶるかっていうと、目で見ると1次元しか見れないんですけど、目をつぶって意識を指先10本に意識をやると、 10個の目になるんですね。僕はそれを、10個の目として10次元と言ってるんですけれども、そばそこから大好きになったのはそういう自分のもともと持ってる才能と、リンクしたからだと思います。それが今まで味わったことのないそばとの、つながり。そばと出会えたのが多分、19歳ぐらいですね。そこからずっとやってますんで。もう亡くなられたんですけど、小口澄夫という大先生がいたんですね。彼はお蕎麦を僕に教えてくれました。で彼がそうですね、今のその自分の技術を教えてくれたっていうことですね。次のプロセスがそれをのして広げていくプロセスがのしというプロセスに変わります。で円が大きくなってもそれ以上大きく出せなくなったぐらいで、今度はその円の4つの方向を決めて、そうすると4つの視点が伸びていくんで、4つの視点が伸びると正方形になるんです。ちょっとマジックみたいな感じですけど、畳むのも体の本当に今言ってたバランスを使わないと、手だけのここの筋肉で使うとビリッと破れて、もうそこから手直しができなくなる。彼から3年間習ってる時に彼は亡くなってしまったんですけれども、彼からすごく多くのことを学びました。あとプラスやっぱり効率性っていうことですね。そばと出会ったことで僕の人生は大きく変わり、世界の人たちをくっつけるというか接着剤にしたい。僕は今18年やってるんですけれども、そこからそばというのはバラエティがいっぱいあるんで、全て学ぼうと思ったら一生かかると思うんですけれども、それをまず探すために僕は今もやり続けてるっていうのもある。僕はやっぱりシンプルなものはベストだと思ってますから、やっぱりシンプルほどそこにやっぱり答えがあるから、皆さんそれが美学っていうか美しいものだと感じるんじゃない。僕もそれはやっぱり美しいもんだと思って、夢はいっぱいあります。
我从小有3个梦想。
世界にこれを広めたいなと。
厨师、演员、中医。
このプロジェクトを一番大きい夢にして、
我以后觉得我妈妈就特别的骄傲。 Peter Song。
私は小谷修一です。お蕎麦作りをしております。
麺心国本の店主国本です。
Have you ever dreamed of opening up your own ramen shop? While most ramen-ya's kitchens are wide open to see, you may be surprised at all the work that goes into owning a ramen store yourself. While ramen is Japanese fast food, it's not a fast process to make. It takes time, dedication, hard work, and knowledge. While he does buy his fresh noodles from a menya, that means noodle store, most everything he makes is from scratch. What kind of hours does he work? 8 a.m. to 11:30 p.m., 6 days a week. And this is not the I'm out of the house from 8 a.m. to 11:30 p.m., so I'm working all that time, even though I have breaks. This is non-stop hard work from when he enters the shop until when he leaves. If you add it all up, and I did, that's an 80-hour work week.
もともと父はラーメン屋で、ラーメン屋っていうか脱サラしてラーメンやったんですよ。で僕もそれ一緒にずっと10代の頃から手伝ってて、まあラーメンは別にもう遊びじゃないけど、まあ、手伝いみたいな感じでずっとやってたんですけど、で僕ちょっと一回外出たくてサラリーマン経験したくてちょっと営業の仕事したんですけど、やっぱ向いてなくて、でその営業の仕事してる時にやっぱりちょっと自分で作ったものをお客さんに出して、お客さんに喜んでもらえたら来ていただいて、そういう仕事やっぱりしたいなと思って、朝8時に入って、で毎日魚のスープ作らなきゃいけないんですよ。で魚のスープ作りながら卵を仕込みして、その時頭にあったのがラーメン屋さんで日本一だって麺屋武蔵、そこに電話してすぐ働かせてくれという感じで、で麺屋武蔵新宿本店行って、でそこから始めて4年半修行して、で今に至ってますね。
Kunimoto's restaurant has 4 main dishes. Of course, they all contain ramen noodles, but they're actually not all the same thickness, nor are they prepared the same way. This is regular ramen. Each restaurant will have their own take on the dish. Kunimoto's version has a flavorful broth with fatty pork. This is shio ramen, and shio stands for salt. It has a light broth and lean pork.
Ramen is made of 6 things: noodles, oils, toppings, soup, and thyme. It's difficult for all 6 of those to be put together, so when you eat a bowl of ramen with all 6 of those elements in perfect balance, it really touches your soul and takes you to a magical place. My name is Keizo Shimamoto, and I love ramen. I've been making it for over 10 years, and I've probably eaten over 10,000 bowls in my life. Started making ramen 10 years ago in Japan. I moved to New York and created the ramen burger, and that sort of went into the creation of Ramen Shack. We wheeled it out every weekend just to serve ramen for one day. After Ramen Shack closed, the oldest existing ramen shop in New York City, Rai Ken asked me to do a one-time special dinner, and I jumped at the opportunity. The dinner is 5 days away, but the amount of time that goes into that, I mean, we're talking 400 bowls for one dinner. There is a lot of work to do. It's going to take me 5 days to prep for this dinner. The first element of ramen is noodles. For the noodles, we start with the water and kansui. So kansui is the type of salt that really adds that firm springiness that you get with a ramen noodle. For my recipe of my noodles, I combine a blend of 3 or 4 different flours and put in a little egg powder and just put it in the mixer and just let it run. Ramen noodles have such a low percentage of water. A couple drops of water can change everything. Although the machine is mixing the flour, I'm still using all my senses to really check and see if it's forming. I'll touch it, I'll feel it, I'll squeeze it. Playing with the dough is almost like playing with wet sand at the beach. So we lift up the mixer and start putting it through the machine and make sheets. This process is pretty dangerous. You have these big rollers that are heavy. This is probably the most important part of having a machine do it rather than doing it by hand, because it allows you to make more portions faster and efficiently. So when we take the first sheet and we split it into 2 and then we put it through the machine again, that's the kneading process. I always watch and stare at all these rolls because it's kind of soothing. It's almost like my therapy. We let it rest for at least 30 minutes. After that, we stretch out the dough. We incrementally adjust the width of the roller to press it and thin it out. As the sheet gets rolled thinner, it passes through the cutter, which creates our ramen noodles. And as the noodle comes down, there's certain timing it gets cut, and you have to catch it, roll it, put it in the case. And then every so often you also have to weigh it because we want to have it a consistent portion. So it's a very rhythmic job. You can get ahead of yourself and start dropping noodles, so you really have to find that rhythm and just work to the beat. So now that the noodles are done, we'll just let them rest until the day of the event. In Japanese, there's a term called nekaseru, which means to sleep. So when the noodles sleep, then they just get better, just like humans. The second element of ramen is infused oils. For one of my ramen bowls, I will be making a niboshi infused oil. So niboshi is the dried sardine or dried anchovy. I would take off the heads. The guts will get thrown out. The body will go into my dashi, and the heads will be used in my niboshi oil. So we got to bring the oil up, put the scallions in first. The scallions have water in them, so it really kind of makes this explosion. So it's very dangerous and you got to be careful. Then we add the niboshi heads and we wait until it gets a brownish coloring. There is definitely a certain point. If you start to smell it, you start to see the change, that's when you know it's done. The third element of ramen is toppings. I'm actually going to be serving 8 different bowls of ramen, so there's a lot of different toppings that go into these. The chashu is definitely probably the most common topping in ramen. I think I'm making about 100 pounds of chashu just for this event. So the pork belly comes in a slab. Each fourth will get rolled and used. With any type of raw meat, you have your warm hands touching it and there's possibility of it spoiling. So it's best to go as fast as you can. I'm 4 times as fast as I used to be when I started. It really helps because like being fast, but also being good at what you're doing is key. So after I roll them, we boil them in just hot water. That takes out all the impurities of the pork. Once we boil them, then we take them out and then boil them separately in a soy sauce marinade. And we basically just let it sit in there overnight. Another topping that I have to prep is menma, bamboo shoot. So after a quick rinse, I lay them out inside a container. It's important to me that they're straight because then they can bring a nice symmetry to the bowl. So then I put the marinade in, which is a blend of soy sauce and sugars and mirin and sake. So the menma is cold, but this marinade goes in hot. It allows the menma to soak it up immediately. By the time of the event, the menma will taste perfect. By the time the day is over, I've made all the noodles for 400 servings, about 100 pounds of pork belly, and it's still only just half the topping, so I still have a lot of work to do tomorrow. All right, it's day 2. The first thing we'll do is check on the pork. So when I start taking them out, I'm looking for the right color, that dark soy sauce color. Really smell the chashu. The smell is amazing. It's like a meat Mount Fuji. After the pork belly chills for a bit, we then cut them into slices. So when I cut it and it's got that perfectly round spiral shape and you get a little bit of a pinkish color, that's really what I'm looking for. So at the event, I'm gonna torch it, but for right now, I'll set them aside in the fridge. Now I'm gonna start working on my eggs. So poking a hole in the egg also will release any trapped air inside. So that air being released will make the egg become more perfect egg shape. Once the water comes to a boil, I'll insert all the eggs and I end up stirring it for the first minute or so because it lets the trapped air come out from the egg and also it will center the yolk. At the 7-minute mark, we shock them in ice water and this allows the cooking process to stop. I want to go as fast as possible, but at the same time I don't want to break the eggs. After I peel all the eggs, they go into another marinade of soy sauce and sugar and mirin. Then they'll sit for a few days up until the day of the event. So the last topping that I'll make today is the spinach. So it's important to wring out all the water because when I put the spinach onto my bowl of ramen, I want the spinach to absorb the flavor of the soup rather than the reverse. Like if you go too fast, then you might damage the spinach. I'm making a ton of toppings for my bowl of ramen, but every single topping has an important purpose. Well, naruto is a critical piece because naruto tells the customer this is ramen. So after all my toppings, it's time to work on another important part. The 4th element of ramen is the soup. Soup is like the soul of the bowl. And I start off with the pork feet and pork backbone, and I'll cook those first. So once those finish cooking, I'll add chicken back, chicken feet. And also I'll put in a bunch of different vegetables from potato to ginger to onion. And all of this is happening in a big pot and I'm letting it get thicker and thicker. Once those are all boiled together, I'll take a giant whisk and I'll attach it to my drill and I'll just blend it for a few minutes just to get a nice creamy texture and break down all the bones. Straining it definitely is the longest process. Like you have to sift it by hand, 1 or 2 scoops at a time because it's almost cement-like and you have to guide it through the strainer. Gravity won't help at this point. So by the time this soup is done, I mean, it's very thick, but it's also very flavorful. This soup has 13 ingredients and takes over 6 hours to make. If you add that up to all the other toppings and all the other prep, this bowl of ramen will have 100 ingredients and 100 hours of work put into it. I hope people are going to like it. Today's the big day, and I've definitely been looking forward to this day. couldn't sleep much because I spent a lot of time visualizing serving all 400 bowls. So when we first arrived, I just unloaded everything, checking out their noodle boiler, the candy stoves, and over the weekend I also finished prepping all the other toppings for the other bowls. The fifth element of ramen is the tare flavoring, and I actually made that a few weeks ago because it takes a long time to mature. The challenges of a pop-up is definitely cooking in a space that's not yours, so it's really just trying to fit my puzzle into theirs. Even though I've prepared all my food and all my ingredients, I still need to know how to prepare my ramen with their equipment. So for this event, I have a few former staff coming to help out, but I also have some ramen fans from around the country that just want to work. There's a guy from Austin, Texas, a guy from Cincinnati, Ohio, a guy from Providence, Rhode Island, and a guy from Washington, D.C. To have so much passion around a dish and fly from around the country, I think it's amazing. All right, guys, November 12th. It's been 7.5 months since Ramen Shack closed. I mean, everyone misses it, I miss it, and today is going to be very special. It might get crazy, but let's just enjoy it. And we got about 400 portions, I think, so let's try and sell out. We got already a line out the door. Let's just have fun, enjoy it, and eat good ramen, feed good ramen to these people. And I guess that's it. Let's go. Let's Ramen Shack. 1, 2, 3. Ramen Shack! The moment the doors opened, it took less than a minute for the whole shop to be filled. Just knowing that the people want Ramen Shack, it's a good feeling. The first order came in and it was for my classic shoyu. When we make a bowl of ramen for service, each bowl has a certain order that needs to be followed. And this is where the final sixth element, timing, comes into play. I'll start by heating up the bowl. As the bowl is heating, I'll start warming up the soup. So I have a certain amount of time to do things in between. Then before I start with the tare, I'll drop the noodles. The noodles take about a minute, and within that minute, I want to finish up putting in the tare, the oils, the black pepper, and the yuzu juice. Once that's done, the soup will be hot enough to pour into the bowl. The second that minute is up, I take the noodles out of the boiler and I let it sit there for a while so all the water drains out, and then I'll start shaking it. If that water is left in the noodle and you put it into your soup, it'll dilute the flavor, so you don't want that. Starting now, we have 1 minute to get this bowl in front of the customer, and you need to fold the noodle to give it a plating surface. Otherwise, the toppings could sink in and you might not see them. We place the chashu, mema, and spinach, then the naruto, and the nori, and the egg. The noodles will start to change texture the longer you leave it sitting. So we want it to get to the customer while it still tastes good. After the first bowl, every order that comes in, it just starts to become a dance. Soup, noodles, topping, soup, noodles, topping, grabbing a bowl, putting the soup, putting the noodles. Like it's just repeated over and over again. Like it's organized chaos of a ramen shop. I love it. One of the bowls I'm serving is a different variation of ramen called tsukemen. It's a thicker noodle that cooks for 7 minutes, and then it gets rinsed and shocked in cold water, then plated separately from the ganja broth. And the ganja broth is a whole different story. The noodles and the broth are separate, and the noodles are actually cold, and you dip them in a hot soup. 4 hours in was still pretty intense. Like the crowd was getting bigger. It's below freezing outside. The wait was like 3 or 4 hours to get a bowl. Crazy. Like even though you're tired, you're hungry, you're thirsty, you want to use the bathroom, but like seeing all these familiar faces and people enjoying having Ramen Shack back for one night, that's what keeps you going. Each bowl has its own personality. I'm sort of giving birth to that bowl and letting it become one with the customer. As the bowl starts to assemble itself piece by piece, it comes alive. We anticipated closing at 10 p.m. and getting that last order out. I think it was already past 11 p.m. For the first time in 8 hours, I could finally take a rest. My team was very hungry. They couldn't eat because we were busy, and I was able to cook a bowl for each member of my team. To see their faces after working so hard, that was pretty special. If I had a chance to bring back the ramen shack with these people, then I would do it in a heartbeat. The final bowl of the night was for me, and it was actually the bowl that was on the secret menu called jiraigen. That final bowl felt like the last 10 years were worth it. Today is also my birthday. I spent the day cooking and eating ramen, and I really couldn't imagine it being any better than that.
麺心国本の店主国本です。
Have you ever dreamed of opening up your own ramen shop? While most ramen-ya's kitchens are wide open to see, you may be surprised at all the work that goes into owning a ramen store yourself. While ramen is I've never worked in Japan. I mean, I work in Japan. I needed Japanese language or workplace skills. But I do know people who have, so I set up interviews with 8 of them to see what their experiences were like. All of them worked in the real Japanese workplace, from small, modern companies to big traditional ones. Or in other words, they worked jobs that didn't involve teaching English. They were required to be proficient in the Japanese language and business culture. All the interviewees speak English, have lived outside of Japan for some period of time, and have university degrees. So these are not your typical Japanese workers, let's just be clear on that. But I think they do help give insight into what it's like working in Japan and how it compares to working in a global or Western workplace.
Like if you could just choose what era you entered the workforce, when would you like to be entering?
I don't know, maybe before bubble. I don't know bubble.
The bubble was the height of the Japanese economy, and the bursting of it in the early 90s was akin to the Great Depression.
So I heard at the bubble age, they used 1万円 as 1000円. You know what I mean? Wow.
Was it hard finding a job at that time when you?
Oh no, it was pretty easy. After 1 year later, it was difficult.
Female and male is totally different.
When they are hired, it's divided.
And for female, they're only for the
paperwork. It was so boring. women are only to help men.
Did any of those women, did they ever move up?
No, not at all. They even don't call us women, girls. Maybe 2 years, 3 years later, they entered the company, they got married and quit. And that was the style.
Japan is famous, or infamous, for its work hours, so I wondered what it was like in the 90s.
I left my office at 5:30 every day. I was lucky.
Most of the case, the workers extend until 7, 8 p.m.
I had to wake up like 5 o'clock in the morning because I had to travel 2 hours from my home to that place and start from 7:30. And also I could go home with the last train, so it means midnight. The senior was everything. They decide, not just only boss, but the older or came into the facility before me. I asked to that senior, and that senior said, oh, okay, we finished, but this teacher hasn't finished yet. Okay, so let's wait for her. Let's chat. Let's grab some potato chips. Talk.
飴食べる食べる
Then everybody will stay until 10 o'clock. That's kind of a Japanese culture thing that I felt very sorry if I leave. What if other teacher are doing stuff?
Part of the bargain for being so dedicated to the job was that your employer guaranteed you that job for life.
Used to be, they could trust company because company can keep you whole life. The employee had to die for the company. That kind of concept. Any excuse was accepted. But this a company, okay, hire you. Oh, sorry, our company is getting crisis, so fire. And then, okay, how come I have to trust the company because they don't protect us? Then becomes more cool. Deny, I don't want to join the inomikai. More important is my family and friends. Bye-bye.
So what's it like? Hello world. 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 I thought today would be a nice day for a bike ride around Tokyo. And by that, I mean let's ride from one side to the other, from the Edogawa River in the east, and Tamagawa River in the west. I'll call it there and back again. Alright, it's about 7 o'clock. Got my trusty ride. I'm going to head on out. Bye-bye, Martha. Bye-bye, Nita. Okay. So this is the Edogawa River, and on weekdays, the riverbanks are quiet like this, a far cry from the hustle and bustle in the business districts of the city. So this is the place along the river that they usually have horses, although I think it's too early in the morning and they haven't arrived yet. I don't know what these are called, or these locks, but you can ride your bike across and that's where I'm going to go. There are no big signs announcing it, but I just crossed over into the prefecture of Chiba. As much as I like these paths, the gates designed to stop motorcycles can slow you down. And now let's find the hidden treasure. Do you see that? Do you see that behind there? That's what I call the boat graveyard. Where I can get a good view. I have no clue why they're left like this, because it's been like this for many years. Although these boats seem to be in decent order. So this is a kind of party boat, which looks to be leaving a ship repair facility. In this part of Tokyo, you're more likely to see these kinds of industrial facilities. You can find incinerators located all throughout the 23 wards of Tokyo. What caught my attention is that they're located right next to residential areas. And a little hint, if you see a smokestack like this, there's probably a nice park next to it, as they almost always make the adjacent space a green one. Over this way, it says Chiba, and if we pan across the bridge, you're in Tokyo. So that is the direction I'm going, over that way. I like how you can be on an objectively ugly street like this, but you pull out onto another one, and then suddenly it's a river greenway. For a good portion of my trip, I tried to plan it so that I was along greenways. The traffic is never fast, and there are always bathrooms, water, and rest points along the way. See? Bathroom and a water fountain. Just don't forget to bring your own soap and towel. As you will notice in so many of these shots, the houses are quite close to everything, and sometimes so much so that you can walk out of your balcony onto other structures like this river path. Now, why did I film this again? Probably to show some old buildings or something. As you can see, this path did have nice landscaping, but then it gets a lot more utilitarian quick. That's okay though, because they have a ponyland across the street. For some reason that I'm not going to Google, you can in fact find many ponylands around the city. Thinking about it, there are 2 within a half-hour bike ride from my house. While I'm not visiting Disneyland today, it's right across the water. This is Kasai Rinkai Koen, and it's one of only 2 spots in Tokyo to have beaches. It has lots of great nature stuff, like bird observatories. The park also has an affordable aquarium, and it's hard to miss the giant Ferris wheel hanging out in the back. There's also a ferry service that goes to Odaiba, which I'm going to today, but not by ferry, by bike. And here's the beach. No bikes allowed, so I'm walking it. Not really a swimming beach, and apparently you need a permit to do it. But you can wade in the water. I feel that most people in the Tokyo area would go to Enoshima, which is in the neighboring prefecture of Kanagawa, if they really want a beach to hang out and swim at. I was going to go to the wind turbine and Tokyo Gate Bridge over there on the horizon, but due to the distance, I scrapped the idea. However, please enjoy these snapshots from previous trips of mine. This is the Arakawa River, and if it's not the widest and deepest river in Tokyo, I'd be shocked. This is not the prettiest of bridges, but it does the trick for crossing the Arakawa. Conveniently, they have a pull-out point so you can see the scale of the river. Another incineration plant and another park. As I mentioned at Kasai Rinkai Koen, there are tourist ferries you can ride on. Well, one of them happens to pass by this bridge, and I had always wanted to go on it. Mission accomplished. Oh yeah, you'll see these signs all over about where pedestrians should walk and cyclists ride, but I swear, no one actually follows these rules. You're supposed to walk down these staircases, so I tried for the first flight, but I honestly felt it more dangerous, so I rebelled a bit and rode down instead. Luckily, this is not some video sponsored by the city or anything, so this footage of my badassery stays. Look who it is! Oh, you did get a new bike, eh?
I guess you could call it a new bike, a city bike. It's got the smaller wheels. It's not for speed, it's more for mobility, I think. This is where the Tokyo Marathon used to end right here. There's a lot of good memories. Yeah, this side of Odaiba Island is a lot of factories, sort of what Toyosu was back in the 1980s.
How come you don't use any of these dry tech shirts, John?
I don't know. That's a fair question. We're not quite in July yet.
It's supposed to be hit 30 today. Like, see, this is Tokyo, but there's like no one here. That's why I like going during the weekdays.
Yeah.
And especially, I guess there's no tourists anymore, so who's here?
We're here, Greg.
We're here, representing.
Now, this whole island, this whole side of the island is made for leisure. It's for a place where people come on dates, a place where people can kind of relax, because the city of Tokyo and the center is so packed in and crowded. This is a release. Ah, do you see it?
I see.
There it is!
Look at John, he's so excited, he's going way ahead of me.
I've never been here where there wasn't a soul in sight.
Now this is crazy.
I've never been here like there's nobody. We have this whole place to ourselves. It's a little bit of the pandemic as well as just being a weekday.
So we did stop by the mall food court, which was at about 5% capacity when we got there. I had this bukake udon for a quick lunch.
I love this view. It's like all of Tokyo is in front of you on the other side of that bridge.
We're gonna cross that bridge when it comes. Oh, the Olympic rings. I've never seen them in person.
Really?
I gotta go check out the Olympic rings. And here's my bike setup. I roughly plotted my whole route on Google Maps, and on the left, it's my water bottle, which is very important. I was going to have my picnic at Daiva Park, which is that green diamond in the background. It used to be a cannon battery installation for warding off invading ships, but we had no time since we had to cross the bridge. You're not allowed to bike ride across, but you are allowed to push your bike across. So what they do to prevent you from riding your bike is give you a free dolly that you attach to one of the wheels. I believe this is mostly because of safety, as the railings aren't super high and it can get windy up on the bridge, so you really wouldn't want to fall off.
I'm filming you, filming me.
You can actually cross on both sides by foot, but for bikes, we had to cross on the north side at this time, which provided a great view of the city.
Oh, we're at P30. We got a little bit more to go.
Yeah, 1.3 kilometers to go.
Come on, John. Hustle. Hustle.
As you can see, by walking across the bridge, you get a lot better view than the train passengers do.
Wow, looks good. Going all the way.
At the Shiba Ura side, you need to ride down an elevator to get to ground level.
There you go. We did the entire Rainbow Bridge, and that's where I say goodbye. Greg, good luck on your trip all around Tokyo.
All right, thanks, man. Have fun.
Later, Gator.
See you, John. Take it easy, man.
Bye, everyone.
With John out of the way, I continued on my path towards the Tamagawa River. Using this walkway, you don't get to ride this loop though, which trains get to do, so I'd recommend hopping on one, as well as going by ferry. Anyways, a good way. There are so many little bridges like this throughout Tokyo, and I always enjoy their unique views. And now I'm on my way to a kind of hidden park. It's located right on top of a water reclamation center, or in other words, a sewage treatment plant. And as always, since it's a park, it's a convenient place to use the washroom, and I've pointed this out in past videos, but they have data demo toilets that anyone is free to use, from people with disabilities to those who are transgender. The water in Tokyo is very clean, so I filled up my 3 water bottles as well. The park is located next to huge office towers, so a lot of business people are here during lunch. The mist spray was sadly not as satisfying as it looked. Coincidentally, I ended up riding right past the automated underground bike parking, the same one I had filmed for my Tokyo by Train video. So the plan was to get to the Meguro River so that I could ride on more cyclist-friendly streets. But truth be told, these streets were quite cyclist-friendly as both the sidewalks and the roads had lots of space to safely ride on.
I don't know if this is working or not, but behind me is the start of Meguro, or the end of Meguro River. And I am going the opposite way. There we go. I'm going all down that way to Shibuya.
So now I'm riding along the Meguro River, which sometimes has cyclist-friendly paths and sometimes doesn't, but at least always had calm streets to ride along. Sometimes you'd want to cross one of the many bridges as the other side had a better path, or better view, like of this shrine. The one annoying thing was that on some of these paths they had gates to prevent motorbikes from entering, which sometimes made riding on the road easier. So that's what I did here. And as you can see, it's still very safe for bicycles, with the max speed of cars set at 40 kilometers an hour, which is 25 miles an hour. I'll point this out many times, but you can often see cyclists weaving on and off of roads and sidewalks, like this lady on the left. I'm assuming with the parked truck, she felt safer riding on the sidewalk. As she gets back on the road, I'm getting ready to leave it to go on the sidewalk path along the river. With all the bridges you have to cross and the switches between roads and sidewalks, you could potentially find a route that is faster along a main roadway. However, the ride wouldn't be nearly as visually pleasant and quiet. Plus again, there's lots of parks along these greenways, so there's tons of rest stops whenever you need one. I simply enjoy the beautiful scenery these greenways provide. Oops, took the wrong side. By the way, if you ever want to know how shallow the Meguro River is, there's bulldozers bulldozing the river. So they're bulldozing the stones on the bottom. I've never seen this before. And going back to my bike. Now, one of the great things about traveling around Tokyo, around Japan, is I can literally leave my bike with all the stuff in there and nothing happens. It makes filming a lot easier. I totally should have tried this, but I'm 99% sure you can walk down those stairs and jump across the rocks. Next time. Next time. Okay, so I could continue down the Meguro River, but I want to go over this way, and that's going through Daikanyama and then to Shibuya Crossing, one of the busiest places in Japan for pedestrians. Yeah, so let's go. It's just New Year, did people become cooler over here? Who knew that a place with Yama in its name would be kind of hilly? I do enjoy traveling through these little paths between houses. And here's what a typical home building construction site looks like. And actually, just ahead you'll see a larger scale site complete with these blue safety barriers. Does anyone know if these are to protect the construction workers from falling, the people below from objects, or both? If you know, let me know. We're winding our way down to Shibuya Crossing. I wanted to point out that the wide-angle lens I'm using makes it look like I'm closer to the poles than I really am. However, sometimes those poles in the middle of walkways do really make it a tight squeeze. The path to Shibuya Crossing was probably the worst part of the cycle, as there was lots of construction narrowing roads and even some paths where you had to walk your bike. And here it is, the famous Shibuya Crossing. It's the world's busiest pedestrian crossing with up to 2,500 people crossing at a time. However, due to the pandemic, it's a lot less busy than it normally is. I rode back around to give you a different angle to look at. I thought it was interesting to look at the bikes, with some stopping at the crossing, like a car, while others are going every which way, like pedestrians. But anyways, I wanted to get out of the crowded roads and back onto the greenways. And here's some bike parking. And now, the greenway I was looking for, Karasuyama Ryodo. I thought it was quite obvious in this scene that while there are dedicated walking and cycling paths, you'll see both pedestrians and cyclists on the road as well. Cars can only go 30 kilometers per hour here, or 19 miles per hour, on these small streets. What often happens along these greenways is that the paths get merged, so now there's no separation between cyclists and pedestrians. So depending on the speed at which one wants to travel, feeling of safety, surface, or any number of factors, cyclists will be switching back and forth between the roads and sidewalks. I should point out that on sidewalks with no dedicated cycling path, that for bikes, the speed is supposed to be less than 10 kilometers per hour or 6 miles per hour. I like this sign, which is not only telling dog owners to take their poo home with them, but also their fur brushings. While Tokyo does have many 10-plus car trains, there are some cute small single car ones like this as well. If you're a cat lover, this is the temple to visit. It's Gotokuji, and it's dedicated to the Manaki Neko, the beckoning cat. And one of its origin stories places Gotokuji as the place of where it was found. After riding through a bit of city, I ended up at the edge of the metropolis of Tokyo, the Tamagawa River. Sashiburi. Genki desu ka? I met up with my Japanese teacher and her husband, and they were kind enough to bring me lunch, even though it was 4 p.m. Then we set out to find Kanagawa, the neighboring prefecture. Kanagawa. Okay, we're in Kanagawa. I'll trust it. So it's Kanagawa right here. Great. Chiba to Kanagawa. Prefectures in Tokyo, with the exception of Hokkaido, aren't big, at least in comparison to states in the US or provinces in Canada. So to completely cross Tokyo, starting from Chiba and ending in Kanagawa, isn't actually that far. The Yamamotos were impressed with my gimbal's ability to reverse itself. Sticky na kensha. Battery. Wait. Whoa. And we ended up at another park where we found the youth weren't as socially distant as the signs were recommending. Not much mask usage as well. Then we were off to another park across the street to try out their cycling paths. You were here, okay. Yeah? Okay. And then it was time to part ways and head back towards the east again. But since I wanted to explore some more greenways, I rode north for a few kilometers. This was a major road, so I was worried about riding along it. For some parts, they had separated sidewalks, so that was a relief. There were several places where the sidewalks had many pedestrians, like near the train stations, so I rode along the road for those portions. it was probably the scariest part of the bike ride since those cars were going 50 or 60 kilometers per hour or 31 to 37 miles per hour. So that's why I was very happy with these lush sidewalks, even though they did eventually become a regular sidewalk soon enough. And again, I discover I have an obsession with pointing out incineration plants. Then I reach my goal of Zenpukuji River Green Space. Despite having dual cycle paths on both sides of the small river, I don't recall there ever being a dedicated cycling path, so I tried hopping back and forth between all the paths on both sides of the river, looking for the least congested route. At one point it seemed faster to go through a residential area, so I did that. And before I knew it, I was back on another river. This time it was the Kanda. And again, people walking and biking on both the roads and the sidewalks. This pathway was a lot less green and more hemmed in with buildings. The best greenways have underpasses so that you don't have to cross major roads like this. But for the Kanda River, it's not a true greenway, so I had to go to the nearest intersection to cross. So the Kanda is actually a river system with narrow pathways along the side, with tons of streets intersecting it. So it would have been faster to find a major street to cut my way through to Shinjuku. But I really enjoyed the gardens along these little paths, plus the sudden view of the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Building. Ah, do you see that over there? That's the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Towers. That's where I'm going. Okay, we're in Shinjuku now, and this is a lot better of a road than I thought. There's a dedicated bike lane. There's like hardly anyone around here. So we're not in the heart of Shinjuku, so that's probably why, but still, it's not bad, actually. Did you see the kitties? Never imagined there were such normal houses right by the government towers. Just like a regular neighborhood with a small one. And then I reached the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Building. Wow, that's a long name. Which, and here's a tip, you can enter for free and get a view from either of the twin observatories 202 meters up. But for me, it was time for dinner in the adjacent park. Big tower. Okay, so this is dinner. This is half katsusando, cucumbers that are pickled, and apples. Normally I wouldn't bike across this part of Shinjuku, but I did want to give you an idea of what the busier parts of Shinjuku looked like. As you can see, there are not many cyclists in this part of town. This is where you can get your fix of neon if you so desire. This is the south entrance to Shinjuku Station, which is the busiest train station in the world. If this shot rings a bell, it's probably because this is such a stereotypical image of Tokyo. That's really the reason I wrote here, to kind of place it among all the other landscapes I've shown you today. What I'll do right now is ride right through it, and on the left will be Kabukicho, which is a popular nightlife district. and just a few blocks down the street it's Shinjuku Gyoen, with the Docomo Tower in the background. So quiet in comparison. After that, it was an unexpectedly pleasant ride along a major, yet quiet road, all the way to the Imperial Palace. The 5-kilometer loop around the palace is popular with joggers. It's another oasis in the metropolis of Tokyo. Yes, you're seeing correctly. These are wedding photo shoots in front of Tokyo Station, which was recently renovated just in time for the 2020 Olympics that has been delayed until 2021. The station, by the way, opened up in 1914. I noticed that it wasn't only the youths not practicing social distancing. While they do get bonus points for eating outdoors, many seem to be rather close to one another. Tokyo Station is big, so I wanted to show you the front as well, which has a much more modern look to it. And then it was time to go through the business districts and near the heart of Tokyo in Nihonbashi. Small tip, since there are not many parks in these kinds of areas, these fancy department stores have nice bathrooms. And here is kilometer 0 of Tokyo, the Nihonbashi Bridge, which maps indicate as the starting point in Tokyo. Unfortunately, this historical bridge has a highway right over top of it, but the good news is that they are set to come down in the near future. And one more famous bridge, the Eitai-bashi, Japan's first iron bridge. After that, it was riding along more regular roads, but I wanted to find one last river park.
There is a bike path.
It didn't look so nice at the start, but it did improve as I cycled along.
There's the river path. So it'll be like this for another, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. Yeah, I always like these paths, really calm and peaceful. Oh, bathroom. That's why I like about these paths too. Okay. CC lemon, it's still cold. Nice.
Yes, that's Skytree, the tallest structure in Japan. And now I'm riding in darkness along the Arakawa River, which is a popular cycling path that follows the river for 80 kilometers. Good night. In the end, I rode about 120 kilometers or 75 miles. I was on the road just over 15 hours from 7:30 a.m. to 10:45 p.m. That's a very leisurely pace of about 8 kilometers an hour. turns out that taking out the camera, filming, putting it away, and repeating every 10 minutes or so builds in a lot of mini breaks. I hope you all enjoyed my little bike adventure. After this, I'm not so afraid to tackle longer distances. I think it all came down to pacing, and in this case, slow and steady did indeed win the race. Thanks for watching, see you next time, bye. What's bike riding like where you're from?